I will.
And I just, Kim Bird is very, is
Yeah.
Now you're bored.
Well, I thought I'd just go make a short presentation to the board on behalf of us.
Okay, as is customary for our board, before we begin our meeting, we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to ask UNL Student Regent Paul Peckish to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Feel free to join everybody.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
So it's usually not a problem.
I'd like to call to order the October 5, 2023 meeting of the Board of Regents. Please call the roll.
Regent Latoro. Regent Molina.
Here.
Regent Peckish.
Here.
Regent Schultes.
Here.
Regent Clare.
Here.
Regent Kenny.
Here.
Regent O'Connor.
Here.
Regent Schaefer.
Here.
Regent Shear.
Here.
Regent Stark.
here.
Regent Weiss. Regent Wilmot.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Can't hardly hear it.
Thank you. For all in attendance, please note that in compliance with the Open Meetings Act, the board has posted a copy of the act near the refreshment table. Included in your materials is a copy of the minutes from our meeting on August 25, 2023. I'd entertain a motion for approval. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
The motion and a second. Are there any amendments, comments, corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, call the roll, please.
Regent Molina.
Yes.
Regent Peckish.
Yes.
Regent Schultes.
Yes.
Regent Kenny.
Yes.
Regent O'Connor.
Yes.
Regent Schaefer.
Abstain.
Regent Shear.
Yes.
Regent Stark.
Yes,
Regent Whites. Regent Wilmot.
Yes.
Regent Clare.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Chancellor Gold and Regent Schultes, thank you so much for hosting an amazing day yesterday. We had the opportunity to tour the campus. We had an outstanding meal last night at the Monroe Meyer Institute, and it was the meal and the conversation was outstanding. So thank you very much for hosting it. I'm pleased that we have this opportunity to showcase some of the great work that we saw yesterday that you've been doing up here at UNMC. And you know, I remember when we were recruiting you and trying to convince you that University of Nebraska Medical Center was the place for you, and the question came up, you know, why? And the opportunity to change the world was one of the responses. Well, I think, ladies and gentlemen, you will see when we showcase what we saw yesterday, as well as some of the amazing other things that are happening here at UNMC, that Dr. Jeff Gold and his team are truly changing the world. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you showcase a little bit of UNMC. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for those very kind words, Regent Clare and members of the Board of Regents, guests. It is a great pleasure to welcome you. Charles, if we could get the first slide. Thank you. It is a great pleasure to welcome you here to the University of Nebraska Medical Center campus, and particularly to the Wigton Heritage Atrium. As you probably know, we're gathered here under the majestic facade of the University Hospital, which was opened in 1917, which was a symbol to this community that healthcare education, critically important cutting-edge research, and clinical care went hand in hand to build the future of this great community, and continues to do so today. I'm really privileged for this opportunity. As you may remember, Regent Clare, was almost exactly 10 years ago today that you and I met for the first time, and that is not lost on me that I stand here again essentially a full decade later, which is incredibly gratifying, and I would personally, it's been the honor of my life to serve in this role. So, as I always start off any presentation, our mission has not changed over this decade. It is to lead the world in transforming lives to create a healthy future for both individuals and communities, and we do so through education, innovative research, and extraordinary patient care. The key phrase here is transforming lives. Equally important to that for both Nebraska Medicine and UNMC is our core values. We call them the I Teach values. It stands for innovation, teamwork, excellence, accountability, and very importantly, courage and healing. Healing and healthcare and caring go hand in hand. So my brief remarks this morning relate to three different areas. They relate to transforming lives, what we have done over the last years since the founding, transforming lives today, and a bit of a peek into what our vision is for tomorrow. And so let's start off with transforming lives, some of the history from yesterday and where we are to set the stage. This is a graphic that does not come from us. It actually comes from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and it talks about the 5 elements that go into creating the health of a community, the so-called determinants of health for both rural and urban communities across the United States. And I think the message you'll hear today from all of us is that not just in healthcare quality and access, but in education, in neighborhood and built environment, in social and community context, and economic stability, the Med Center here is involved in all of those to create a healthier community. So this is a graph that was recently published. It looks at the health status of every state in the United States. To your far left, the healthiest, at least was Hawaii. I don't know where it'll be after the recent tragedies. And to the far right is the state of Mississippi. And about 20 years ago, that's where the state of Nebraska was. And this is where the state of Nebraska is today. And yet, if you look across the 93 counties of the state, what you'll see is there are a tremendous amount of disparity in healthcare, which relates, of course, not just to prevalence of disease, but vaccination rates, cancer screening, and so many other things that go into determine the health status of our 93 counties. Indeed, the University of Nebraska Medical Center College of Public Health publishes a workforce report, and some of you may have seen these before. This is just one out of dozens and dozens of charts that shows that if you look at primary care in the state of Nebraska, there are counties that have actually 15 that do not have a single primary care provider, and there are very few that are in the deep red, which have the minimum United States recommendation for primary care access. So we have a challenge in terms of primary care workforce, specialty care workforce, allied health professions, nursing, and so much more. None of that is news. But if you look at these different categories of healthcare professionals, which range everything from physicians to medical nutritionists, respiratory practitioners, podiatrists, optometrists, every one of these categories is fragile and at risk. Indeed, in the summary and recommendations of this report, they state that the healthcare workforce tends to point to continuing challenges to deliver care in rural regions. They go on to say that similar declining trends can be observed for all physician types since 2019, and the number has decreased, as you see, by about 70 or so. And then finally, among physicians, 19.4% are now aged at 61. That is becoming the new 51, by the way, for all of you. But this trend,
Good comment.
This trend of aging out of our workforce is significant. I'm with you on that. So, building on our legacy, we say academic healthcare and academic medicine. What starts here saves lives, and that is largely the theme of my message. We are a very complex organization. This is actually a photograph of when this facade was first opened back in 1917. At that time, it was the College of Medicine, Nursing, and University Hospital. This interrelationship of the clinical mission, education mission, and research mission largely for the last 100 years was driven by the social contract of medicine. That is to say, the altruism, the humanism, the unique knowledge, the caring, and the self-criticism. However, there are numerous critical external public and private forces that continue to drive the decision-making, access, cost, and quality of healthcare in the United States, and our state is not anywhere immune from that. While there are many different aspects, laws, regulations, technology, markets, fiscal trends, etc., there is no question that for us here in Nebraska, with large underserved rural and underserved urban communities, the healthcare workforce is critical. We know that the workforce affects access to care, quality of care, and cost of care. We learned last night about a family that has to get up at 1 o'clock in the morning to get speech-language pathology services for their toddler so that she can learn how to speak. But it also affects the quality of life in our communities. It actually connects directly to life expectancy, economic vitality, and community vitality across our state, large and small communities. You know, I hearken back to literally the year before we met, Regent Claire, when under the leadership of J.B. Milliken, the Board of Regents, the legislature, a proposal was funded to put $91 million of investment from the state's cash reserves to support capital projects known as Building the Healthier Nebraska, to support capital projects in Omaha, Lincoln, and Kearney, which was leveraged by far more than $300 million of additional support, and was a unique partnership between the legislature, the taxpayers of the state of Nebraska, the university, and the philanthropic community. Among the many projects that resulted from that were the Joe and Millie Williams Science Hall, the Davis Global Center, just to mention a few of the incredible public-private partnerships, the UNMC Center for Drug Discovery, the Wigton Heritage Center, the Monroe Meyer Institute, and on, College of Nursing Lincoln Campus, and the Fred and Pamela Buffett Cancer Center. And just to give you a little bit of backup on that, when the Cancer Center was opened in 2016, we had a 5-year set of goals and aspirations, every one of which was achieved within the first 2 years of opening the Cancer Center, now with an economic impact measured in December of 2022 of over $600 million. We've exceeded every research, clinical, operational, and capital goal to the point that 11,000 patients in year 5 were admitted to the C.L. Werner Cancer Hospital, a 63% increase in critically important cancer research, and on, just to make the point that the impact, the return on investment of this was critically important. So implementing our mission, where are we today? About 4,500 students, about $970 million of operating budget, and just over $250 million in sponsored research awards. You can see the distribution of our student bodies, College of Dentistry, Medicine, Nursing, Pharmacy, Public Health, Allied Health Professions, and the grad school. But what is not perhaps clear is that we've increased the overall enrollment over the last decade. When I say we, that's the editorial we, our deans and directors, our center institute leaders, et cetera, who we are so privileged to have a wonderful team of almost 1,000 students. And shaded for you at the far right of the screen is what the predictions are with the opening of the new Health Science Education Complex Phase 2 building out in Kearney, Nebraska. Again, a tremendous impact for workforce development, for urban and for rural Nebraska. If you look at our research change over the years, again, it's been a very significant upward trend. If you look at sponsored awards, we've gone from approximately $100 million to over $250 million in sponsored awards. And by the way, every single $1 million is between 33 and 35 permanent high-paying jobs for the state. If you look at expenditures, just year over year, last year we increased by 14%. And again, that's a pretty good marker of the volume. So there's a balance, delicate balance between awards and expenditures. And so in your deck today, I've provided you both. But that research has an impact as well in commercialization, intellectual property transfer, corporate startups. So if you look at the trend of patents going back to the year 2004 to today, we've gone from approximately 100 a year to almost 300 a year. If you look at startups, if you look at total revenue granted, the technology transfer cycle here in the biosciences is unquestionably alive and well. And that translates into economic impact. Indeed, the overall economic impact of the Med Center here, our hospitals, clinics, academic programs, research, and education, has gone between 2018 and 2021 from 4.8 to 6.4 billion, as assessed by the Tripp Umbach Company. But just the academic side of the house has gone from an economic impact of 1.2 to 1.5 billion dollars. So the return on investment from the state of Nebraska for the taxpayers continues to be very significant, which is an important part of our responsibility. But we also have a responsibility to live green, and we have a set of very critical metrics, what we've referred to as our Live Green sustainability metrics, and without boring you with the details, we are very much on track. Healthcare in the United States is a very large user of energy, as you might imagine, and as a result of that, we have to be very careful about how we plan future facilities and how we maintain current facilities. The Davis Global Center, which was also created as a result of these public-private partnerships, is 192,000 square feet. The board had an opportunity to visit yesterday. Through the end of last fiscal year, we had hosted over 140,000 interprofessional students, faculty, healthcare professionals, and special guests, facilitated over 7,000 modality simulations and visualization centers, and established partnerships with more than 40 surgical technology and education industry collaborators as part of the use of this remarkable public-private partnership. You're all well aware of our history going back over 20 years in health security facing the 21st century threats. We were put largely on the map at the time of the Ebola crisis in Western Africa in 2014, but COVID has just reinforced the need for a trusted partner for our federal, state, and local communities, for the hundreds, if not thousands, of universities, meatpacking facilities, courts, classrooms, K-12, early childhood, that use the playbooks developed by our team here. If you're interested, we publish a weekly web publication called The Transmission. If you want to lose sleep at night and be concerned about what's around the corner and going on in Africa or the Middle East or the Far East in terms of highly infectious agents, just read the transmission, and you'll be transported to a different place. You had the opportunity last night to meet Sydney Norton, and that's a photograph of her with Hannah. But we have a vision for taking the very best of the Monroe Meyer Institute, the so-called autism care for toddlers, out to the community, and we've already opened the first two Autism Spectrum Disorder ACT clinics. The goal here is to open a full 10 of them widely across the state, and I believe the next one is going to be in the Fremont general area and then moving west from there. Unfortunately, 1 in 34 children who are born today will be diagnosed with autism, and male children have 4 times the incidence of that compared to their female counterparts. So this is truly an epidemic that we are doing our very best to handle and provide care. Our goal is over the next 5 years to establish at least 5 more of these ACT clinics, all in rural components of the state of Nebraska. The Med Center and our partners at Nebraska Medicine proudly provide student health care services, whether it's on the Lincoln campus, this campus, the Omaha campus, perhaps someday on the Kearney campus with our increased presence in that location. But we're very proud to do that and to do it in a way that provides what I like to call university quality care. We also provide assistance through sports medicine services, not just to high schools and to some of the community colleges for their students, but we also are very proud to have a relationship now with Husker Athletics, which we will continue to hopefully build. And so what about the future? In my last few minutes with you, I thought I would just take that time to try to create a little bit of a schematic. So this is lifted from a very thoughtful group that looks at planning the future, what they call alternative futures planning, or what might be referred to some as war games. I'm sure something Admiral Carter knows well. It has to do with when you're making decisions in what is a volatile or uncertain operating environment, that you really should not be reactive and tactical. You need to be proactive and strategic. And I would share with you that there is little question that the K-12 education system, public and private higher education, graduate and professional education, and healthcare delivery are unquestionably in a volatile environment. And if that is the case, as the environment gets more volatile, we need to be more proactive and we need to be more strategic in our planning. Indeed, as it is said, reactive strategies in volatile and uncertain environments assure non-sustainability. So every year we go through this process called Alternative Futures Planning, where we test the viability of our strategic plan and revise it accordingly. We look at economic, regulatory, governmental, and social factors that then create both euphoric and dysphoric futures. And by example, I can tell you, for instance, one of our goals relates to the education and learner focus. And what you can see here in the blue, you see viability in a utopian future scenario. In the orange, you see viability in a dystopian scenario. So that's roughly what we're looking for. If you look at the bottom panel, you see the same questions being asked about viability in utopian, dystopian future scenarios, and you see there's an imbalance in the research part of our portfolio. And that results in changing in our strategic plan of what research areas we're willing to invest in, what our future recruitment looks like, the focus towards earlier disease prevention, detection, and you'll hear more about that from Dr. Hingorani in just a few minutes. So how are we doing strategically? Last year we finished at 78% of all of our initiatives, and that's really just where we want to be, because if they're not adequately aspirational, you'd get to 100%, which I would say is not where we want to be. If they were 50%, maybe they were overly aspirational, and so this is a very good balance across our 8 strategic goals. So I really enjoy this quote from Abraham Lincoln that says, "The only way to predict the future is to create it," and that is what we are trying very hard to do. So our strategic planning process involves the use of the Stanford Design Thinking methodology, breakthrough thinking, future scenario planning, lean design thinking, and many others. So where are we? What big rocks are we putting, to use the Covey metaphor, into the jar? So last year, the 2023 through 2026 rolling average, campus culture, UNMC facilities, information management, and clinical research. So let's unpack that. Let's look at these rocks just for a brief moment. Under campus culture, we're very focused in the area of mentoring faculty, students, and staff, career development, the well-being and sustainability of our current and future workforce, gender equity, and a very proud partnership with the National Academy of Medicine. We have 4 basic principles in this area. 1, you are never alone. 2, support is always available. 3, learn with and from others. And 4, and very importantly to all of us, extend and expect grace. We were instrumental, and I personally served on the steering committee with the National Academy of Medicine to build the National Plan for Health Workforce Well-Being. This is a roadmap to better support current and future healthcare professionals, and in so doing, safeguard our nation's health. And we are one of the first institutions to become part of the so-called Action Collaborative. The 7 pillars include the areas of sustaining positive work, supporting mental health, reducing stigma, engaging effective technology, and institutionalizing well-being and long-term care, as well as the recruitment and retention of a diverse and an inclusive workforce. In the area of facilities, we're very proud, top of the list of the UNK Health Science Education Complex, the Catalyst Building, the core facilities, and of course our work on Project Health, building the healthiest Nebraska, BTHN. Here's a rendering of the recent groundbreaking that we're all participating in out in Kearney. A historic day to create a future for the largest satellite health science education project ever conceived in our nation. This is a view of the Catalyst Building, again, a public-private partnership to bring innovation, technology transfer, and commercialization right here to the Saddle Creek corridor. This is a view of the core building, which is the plans for expanding our research and continuing to grow that in direct proximity to the transfer zone. And then finally, Project Next, Phase 1, which is now known as Health, building the healthiest Nebraska. Whether Phase 2, national federal partnerships and regional federal partnerships, become realities, we are still very hopeful of that, but we need to be laser focused on phase one. We need to do what we need to do to build the future workforce, to be sure that we have cutting edge research, and to be sure that 100% of our regional transplants, 90% of rural trauma, all of the high-end cancer care, and so much more that is delivered here can be sustained for generations to come. Under information management, a very important part, we're laser focused on security, research, education, and clinical activities. And under clinical research, we're very focused on community outreach and comprehensive designation of our cancer center, making sure that we comply with all the regulatory security aspects, as well as, of course, phase one clinical trial center. So what does the future look like? Well, I would be presumptive because we have a whole team of people that get together every year and build this future. But I'm going to guess that a lot of it is going to be this year focused on generative, artificial, or augmented intelligence in the education, research, clinical, business development. We have 5 working groups developing these strategies and goals as we speak. They will be reporting out at the end of this month, and they will be baked into the next 3-year rolling strategic plan. Project Health, Rural Health and Wellness, and Comprehensive Cancer Designation are likely to be some of the big rocks that go into these containers. And then finally, I just want to close and say that teamwork obtains uncommon results. As this quote from Andrew Carnegie, teamwork is our ability to work together towards a common vision. It is the only fuel that allows common people to attain uncommon results. It's just to look at our vice chancellors, where I'm so pleased and privileged to work with every day. This is a look at our deans and directors across all of the colleges and institutes. Just a point that you may have learned over our visit yesterday that Dr. Cowan, after nearly 25 years as the director of the Buffett Cancer Center and the Epley Institute, will be stepping down from that position. He will remain clinically active in the community, and Dr. Joanne Sweezy will actually take that position, yet another rock star adding to our team on November 1st. I also want to just take a minute to not only thank the Regents and all of those who worked so hard to plan this meeting, but our facilities management, strategic communications, information technology, the staff of my office, and so many others have been involved in planning this visit for 4.5 months. And so we are incredibly privileged to do so. And then, you know, on the teamwork subject, UNMC Labs, UNMC has its first mascot. By the way, our football team has been undefeated since 1906 when we lost to Benson High School and canceled the team. We're doing Metza in broomball, but we're hoping for a good season this year. And so with that, it is my pleasure to introduce 4 brief presentations. The first by Regent Katie Schultes, who's one of our fourth-year medical students, future member of the healthcare workforce of the state of Nebraska, I might say, Katie, who's going to talk a little bit about experience is in rural health. Katie, it's all yours. Thank you.
Hello, Regents. It's nice to be in front of you, I guess, in one of these meetings. Thank you, and it's a privilege and honor to be presenting to the Regents and to everyone here, especially about a topic that I am so passionate about and I have talked about previously, but you'll get some insight from me, a 4th-year College of Medicine student from rural Nebraska who actually was involved in one of these tracks that I will be talking about. So without further ado, I will be talking about some of the challenges, and I know we've touched on this, and Dr. Gold touched on this, but challenges that rural populations face, and then give an overview of some of the rural health education tracks that we have, and then I'll talk a little bit about myself. I know we've all had the opportunity to chat, but you gave me a microphone, so I'll talk about myself, and then some innovations and future directions. So some challenges that we know are prevalent in these rural populations. I'll just show a lot of graphics because I think they can be powerful. We have those little blue diamond shapes. Those are showing critical access hospitals in Nebraska. And these are the hospitals that serve our underserved rural populations. As you can see, not every county has a critical access hospital. 63 of our counties have them, so we have 30 that do not have even a hospital in their county. And contrary to popular belief, there are people in all of these counties, so it does leave this disparity in healthcare. And some other graphics I thought were really visually nice. You can see red is bad. Red is where we have a shortage of providers and physicians, and the majority of our state is red in that left-hand graphic. And then also we really have a disparity when it comes to mental health providers. Those that are the dark black color on the right-hand graphic have 0 mental health providers in that county, and then many of our counties just do not have enough. And then just across the United States, we know that there are disparities when it comes to our health outcomes, morbidity and mortality in rural populations. So this is showing some of the most prevalent diseases and conditions in the United States, and heart disease, cancer, unintentional injuries, COPD, stroke, diabetes, kidney disease. All of these categories have a higher age-adjusted death rates for rural versus urban populations. And similarly, if this moves forward, there we go. You can just see the rates of death per 100,000 people for rural populations is and has classically been, and maybe even the gap is wider between rural and urban populations. So this is why there's a need, and I think we all know that, but it sometimes can be really profound to show some imaging on that. And then this was put on a graphic put out by Chartist during the pandemic and the aftermath of the pandemic, and I think it's really it's really challenging and difficult to look at these numbers. We had 138 rural hospitals close over the past 11 years, and about 450 that are at risk or vulnerable to closing, and so we have to do something about it. So I will be talking about some of Nebraska's and our university's rural health education tracks. I know we've talked about them before, but I'm hoping to give you the perspective of as someone who went through this and kind of show you what it looks like to go through the process and to be a rural kid looking at these options. So we have KHOP and RHOP. So KHOP is Kearney Health Opportunities Program. It's our partnership with UNK. And then RHOP is Rural Health Opportunities Program with our state colleges, Shatter and Wayne State and Peru State College. And so I think sometimes we just throw these KHOP and RHOP out there, these names out there, and we don't really describe what they are. The programs themselves are very similar between all of our campuses. They have different names. And I was fortunate to be a part of KHOP, so go Lopes. So the mission of these programs is to address the special needs of rural Nebraska people by encouraging those from rural Nebraska to pursue a career in healthcare and hopefully return to rural Nebraska to serve those populations. So when you're looking into this program, you will find that you have to be from rural Nebraska and you have to have a desire to return there. There are some perks. You do get a full tuition scholarship for your undergrad, which is fantastic. And then you follow a curriculum in place by whatever program you're in, and then you get to participate in some professional development activities to prepare you really to come to UNMC. And then you receive an automatic admission into your program as long as you follow the steps, get the grades that you're required, the scores that you're required to get, and then you know that you have a spot at UNMC. So there are 10 programs that have availability in the KHOP program, and not all the campuses have every single one of them. I believe Kearney has all 10 of these, and I was in the College of Medicine, but there's many that can be applied to. All right. So obviously the financial assistance is very helpful and the admission guaranteed into UNMC is a fantastic portion of this. But also throughout the program, when I was in Kearney and when the other students are at the state colleges, you get support systems. There's a community at UNK where actually all of the K-HOP students live in the same building and get to learn and grow together, which is great. You get the opportunity to connect with other students. We would do trips to some of the rural hospitals a couple times a year and kind of see how that works out. And then you just gain some valuable experience in the healthcare setting. And so I think this is something we don't talk about, and I, being in the College of Medicine, I have a little bit of bias and maybe insight on some of these programs, but when you're actually in medical school, in the College of Medicine, we have these 2 tracks that you can participate in, you apply to, and it is really designed for these students that want to go and practice in rural Nebraska. So we have the Advanced Family Medicine Training Program and the Primary Care Program. For the Regents here, former Regent Kent is actually in our primary care program, and so she is already beginning her basically her sub-internship and has committed to following and going to rural Nebraska to be a family medicine provider. So these you apply for during your 3rd year, and if you get accepted, you almost start your residency early. You're still a 4th year student, but you're acting like a resident within your 4th year of your med school. You get a tuition waiver and a stipend for living, so that's an incentive as well. And then you have a guaranteed match at UNMC, and you really just get an extra year of training. So a lot of people will use that time to do more electives in OB, maybe scopes or something, so they can really provide that full range of care to their patients in rural Nebraska. So this is where I get to talk about me. And so I'm from Diller, Nebraska. If you want to know where any of the cities or towns that I talk about, yeah, ask Regent Cares by Harbine, yep. It's by Odell and Harbine, yep. So I'm from Diller, Nebraska, and not actually from inside of Diller, Nebraska. I'm from outside of the town of Diller, Nebraska. And so this is me, little me, and my sister and my dad. We decided we wanted to have a lemonade stand. We lived on a county hardtop road, 55 miles an hour. Our nearest neighbor was about a quarter mile away. But we were very adamant that this is what you do when you're a kid. So we had this lemonade stand, and you think, oh, nobody's gonna show up. Well, of course they're gonna show up. You have kids on the side of the road. You have a neighbor that'll take his four-wheeler and come buy some lemonade from you. And also, I think this is very common in rural populations, but this house that you can see behind us, it's still the house that my mom resides in, and it is actually where my dad, that is my dad, when he was little, grew up. So you can kind of see in the background of that home, and in the background of this picture as well, that's my dad and my aunt. It's the same house that he grew up in, and it has a lot of special memories. This is also me and my dad doing a similar activity in the same home. There's us with our horses. I think I was a cute kid, so I just put a lot of pictures of myself in here. No, that's my dad in high school, same building behind him. And then I felt bad because I didn't have any pictures of my mom, so here's her helping us show goats in the fair, and here's us with our participation ribbons. So I went to, got through there, did all the what rural kids do, right? And I went to high school at Diller Odell. There were 12 in my graduating class, so it was very small. And you don't always know what opportunities are out there when you're a kid in a rural high school. And it came time to kind of pick what I wanted to do, and I said, I don't know, I like science. I don't really know what that means. I know I have a family doctor, but that's really the only thing I knew about. And I was like, well, I kind of would like to do medicine, but nobody in my town, nobody in my school has ever gone on to pursue a career as a physician, and nobody in my family had it as well. So I actually went to my guidance counselor and I said, what can I do? Is this possible? I mean, is this even really possible, right? And she handed me a brochure about K-HOP and R-HOP. And so I applied, and it really kind of made the impossible possible in that situation. So I applied and was fortunate to be accepted, and then did my undergrad education at UNK. So there's some familiar faces in this as well. I was involved in student government at UNK as well. There's Chancellor Christensen, who couldn't make it, and the picture to the left, and we were touring the new STEM building that was being built at that time. And I showed the picture on the right because these are some of my classmates who are also in K-HOP. And there's myself, and then if you go from left to right, the JT has already signed a contract to return to Grant, Nebraska for family medicine. And then Caleb is negotiating with Kearney for pediatrics, and then Nicole isn't sure where she's going but has committed to returning to rural Nebraska. And then here I am, the obligatory white coat picture. And I made it to Omaha. Don't worry, small town kids can survive in Omaha. But made it to Omaha, and this is a group of some of the friends that I have made throughout my time here. And it's interesting because you don't really seek out rural kids. You don't seek out rural people to be your friends, but the towns that we have represented here are Neely, Nebraska, Diller, Nebraska, Burwell, Nebraska, and Benkelman, Nebraska. So Regent Claire can tell you where those are at. But you really find that when you come here, rural kids and rural people understand rural. And it's really this rural knows rural. Rural cares for rural, and if you give rural kids the opportunity to return to rural and care for their neighbors, they will. So really briefly, I know we've talked about it, but the project in Kearney, the Health Science Education Complex Phase 2, is so exciting to me, especially as a College of Med student, knowing that we will have physicians training in Kearney, Nebraska, who are passionate about filling this need that we have in our state. And so I guess what I wanted to say was thank you for the support you guys have in the rural health education tracks, for supporting me and believing in me to do what I thought was impossible. And really just thank you for believing in rural kids and rural populations. So without any other comments, thank you, and I will give the podium back.
Thank you. So the next scheduled presentation was to be done by Dr. Pamela Boyers, the Executive Director of the Davis Global Center. Unfortunately, Pam has been called to a medical emergency with her family, so she left us with a brief video, which I hope you will enjoy.
Present this progress report for IXL and the Davis Global Center. Proposed in 2014 in response to national concerns about patient safety, IXL has been implementing this bold and transformative vision for health professions education. The Davis Global Center, home to IXL, opened for business on March the 1st, 2020, just in time to respond to the emerging COVID pandemic. Since opening this state-of-the-art simulation center, our staff have hosted over 124,000 learners and high-level visitors from across the nation and around the globe. From inception, IXL committed to the vision of improving human performance and effectiveness in healthcare. This was to be supported by three distinct missions: the academic mission, the business mission, and the statewide community outreach mission. My report will address progress made with these three missions. First, the academic mission. The design of the Davis Global Center replicates the total healthcare system, and this beautiful facility has without doubt provided the perfect venue for creating the UNMC model of training. IXL combines human patient simulators, task trainers, and fresh tissue capabilities with 3D and holographic technologies to create a hybrid learning environment. This primary mission involves supporting faculty, staff, and students as they adopt the IXL concept by learning and practicing patient care skills in safe, simulated settings. This approach means breaking large classes into small groups who move through the center each day, as well as supporting faculty as they create training scenarios adopting a wide range of technologies. Team training and collaboration amongst the disciplines are important components of their preparation for practice. The business mission fosters innovation and entrepreneurship, resulting in revenues that support an IXL Technology Refreshment Fund. So the Davis Global Center is also visiting external customers who are charged for certification and training courses. To date, we have established 33 contracts with national and global companies who conduct training workshops, as well as create opportunities for research, development, and eventual commercialization. We find many of these companies highly interested in the IXL team's visualization capabilities, with several already having contracted us for digital twinning and holographic productions. The statewide and community outreach mission is well underway. Recruitment and retention of students, faculty, and staff are key to our mission. The IXL team works intensely with the Omaha Public School System, statewide K-12 districts, UNMC rural and urban pathways, as well as undergraduate students throughout the University of Nebraska system and sister campuses. Frequent collaborations with after-school programs and local non-profit organizations expose students to future careers in healthcare, as well as introduce them to new and emerging STEM fields. Military leaders, government officials, university faculty and student recruits, philanthropic supporters, and industry innovators are frequent visitors to the Davis Global Center, with the IXL team having hosted over 776 interactive tours and demonstrations. A commitment we made to the Board of Regents in 2015 has ensured that training sites across the state benefit from the investment in IXL. During the pandemic, for example, live virtual events were conducted from the holographic theater. They featured our Nebraska subject matter experts as they provided vital and timely information to emergency responders, farmers and ranchers, and critical access hospitals. 10 interactive digital walls connect in real time across the state by collaborative software, and they guarantee connectivity to the campuses in Kearney, Scottsbluff, and Norfolk. I'm very pleased to report that countless cross-state training sessions being held, some with over 100 students simultaneously interacting on these walls with a centrally located faculty member. In addition to becoming a national and global destination, the Davis Global Center has gained accreditation status from the American College of Surgeons, as well as elicited strong interest from the military and the Department of Defense. This interest is especially related to the adoption of visualization technologies for rural and remote training. As we head into 2024, we're collaborating closely with the design of the new Health Science Education Center in Kearney. We're very excited to join this facility as it becomes operational. As we head into the next 5 years for IXL, our goals are to continue the journey of creating the new national model for health professions education, track the impact of this training on patient care, further refine the IXL business vision to take full advantages of the many opportunities presented, as well as expand our statewide outreach mission. Exponential growth of IXL could only have been achieved with the incredible support from the Board of Regents, Chancellor Gold, and the IXL Advisory Board. Finally, kudos to the talented IXL staff who work so hard each day to help UNMC fulfill the IXL promise. With our sincere gratitude to the Board of Regents, the IXL Advisory Board, and the generosity of Nebraskans for believing in and investing in the vision of creating an interprofessional, experiential, performance-based model for health professions education. Thank you all.
Well, thank you. We certainly wish Pam and her family the very best. Our next presentation, and we're trying very hard to stay on your schedule, gives me the great opportunity to introduce one of the newest members of the UNMC family, Dr. Sunil Hingorani, who is the director of our Pancreas Cancer Center of Excellence. His bio is in your materials, and so I won't read them. It would take a long time to read a several hundred-page CV, but it gives me great pleasure to introduce Dr. Hingorani.
My mom was 40.
Thank you, Chancellor Gold. I really enjoyed watching that inspirational IXL video. I regret now that I do not have a soundtrack for my talk, but hopefully that won't detract from it. I want to thank the Chancellor, the President, the Board for this opportunity to share with you our efforts to engage and hopefully conquer this terrible disease. Just to put it in a little bit of perspective, mercifully, pancreas cancer is only the 10th or 11th most common cancer in the Western world. However, in the United States, it's the second leading cause of cancer-related death, and it's poised in the next decade to become number one. So if there is an epidemic in cancer, and some people believe there is, I would submit that pancreas cancer is leading the way, and we have to do something about that. So, the Pancreas Cancer Center of Excellence is really the result of an unprecedented public-private partnership that this board knows well, and was initiated by a challenge from the Nebraska State Legislature to the university, to Nebraska Medicine, to the foundation, and to community leaders to match the funds that might be provided and to achieve the publicly stated mandate to cure pancreatic cancer. I appreciated hearing the story, Regent Claire, of your recruitment of Dr. Gold and the charge that you gave him, and I'd like to share with you just briefly the way in which he extends that charge to others. I will confess that during my recruitment, my initial visit, through my own ignorance, was mostly a courtesy to some of my colleagues that I've known here for a long time. I was not looking to leave Seattle. I met Chancellor Gold on that visit, and he said to me at the start of our interview, "I have only one question for you." And I said, "Okay." And he said, "Are you serious when you say you want to cure pancreas cancer in your lifetime?" Now, no one has actually ever asked me that question. They've always asked me the details of the plans of how I intend to build a program. How many grants am I going to win? How many people am I going to hire? So when I answered, absolutely, he said, "Okay, I'm done. What questions do you have for me?" So I returned from that visit, and I thought, there's something different going on here. They think differently out here, and that was the beginning of what's brought me to this. So how do we do this? In broad strokes, to achieve this goal, I think we need to create new operating structures and models for the delivery of care. We need to create new models for how we interact across the divide, basic scientists and clinicians. That's the gap we're trying to traverse in bringing new therapies into the clinic. We need to elevate the standard and hold people to it for the data that are required before you're willing to advance a strategy into the clinic. In other words, fail fast and fail up front. Don't fail 10 years later when you're in a phase 3 trial. Virtually every single phase 3 trial that we execute should succeed. The success rate currently in phase 3 trials across oncology is less than 8%. That cannot continue. And then to continue and expand upon the notable strengths that already exist here, the truly unique programs, including a rapid autopsy program and an early detection program that's been headquartered here for many years. So the mission statement, following the lead of the Chancellor, is to transform the state of the art for pancreas cancer care by making molecular diagnoses of pancreas cancer subtypes at the earliest possible stages, and then treating with patient-specific therapies. We developed a 3-year plan that we hoped would shape some of our activities. And once again, following the Chancellor's lead, we actually accomplished all of those goals within the first year. So either I was not ambitious enough, not something I've ever been accused of before, or again, there's something different going on here, and we moved much more quickly than I thought we might. So what have we done? We've redesigned and deployed that new model of care delivery. I'll talk about it a little bit. We call it the Pancreatic Diseases Specialty Clinic, and it creates one-stop shopping for the patients. The patients come to one spot, and we bring 40 experts to them, spanning all the disciplines. So they'll spend 4 hours, the better part of 4 hours in an afternoon, but they will not traipse across the city across days and weeks trying to find the experts that they need, which frankly is not something a pancreas cancer patient or their family should ever have to do. It also ends up providing an extraordinary teaching experience for students, residents, and fellows. We've held our first annual Pancreas Cancer Center of Excellence retreat, which was an all-day affair and attended by 85+ experts across scientific disciplines and the clinical disciplines, and it was really an open-ended, free-for-all discussion across what exists, what we hope to build, and how collectively we can get there. There are a handful of efforts in the nation that have already recognized what we're doing here. This was the thing that I thought might take us a couple of years to establish, but I guess people are paying attention. So there's a national trials consortium, the largest of its kind in pancreas cancer, that has a rigorous process to be accepted into. We are now one of those sites. I'll show you a map in a moment about where these sites are located. Perhaps not surprisingly, but inappropriately, they're almost all on the two coasts, except for the site here. We were recently awarded an unusual dual Center of Excellence status by the National Pancreas Foundation. I say it's unusual because you typically apply either in basic science discovery in pancreas cancer or in clinical care. We decided to apply in both areas and were awarded that designation. Very recently, and I'm especially proud of this, the Canopy Collective is a concerted effort to extend this model that we use in the clinic, to other centers across the country. I can name a few of the places where it does not currently occur, and they're desperate to create it. You might have heard of some of these places. Massachusetts General Hospital, Stanford, UCSF, UCSD, the University of Michigan. Each of these sites have applied to try to learn how to deploy this model. Our site's been chosen as the incubator site, the scout site, to basically show how you do it and how you innovate rapidly. And that's a testament to the collegiality and the collaboration that we have here. We don't get in our own way, and our egos don't slow us down. That's an indirect reference to the two coasts. I've spent a lot of time on both of them. We launched a new translational research conference. The way this conference is organized, it's not an academic exercise. We actually break it into 3 parts, and we call it 20-20-20. There's 20 minutes for a basic scientist to present his or her best idea that they believe is ready to move into the clinic, and why. What are the preclinical data? We then pair that with a clinician. They've met beforehand and they've prepped this. A clinician who takes 20 minutes to explain how they might reduce that idea to practice. What does a clinical trial look like? What stage of disease? What are the inclusion criteria? What are the exclusion criteria? And then 20 minutes plus is a free-for-all in this room where we have at it, where we try to see if there are any holes in the preclinical data, and then we send the scientists back to the laboratory to do those experiments, not other experiments that they might have thought they had to do through no fault of their own because they're not guided by a clinical hand. Now we can direct that research. We poke holes in the clinical trial design to see where it may or may not apply to the patient population and the cohorts we want to treat. And by the time we leave that room, we have a refined outline of a clinical trial that then gets written up quickly, and we can advance it into the clinic. And finally, to elevate the standard, that National Trials Consortium that I described to you, Precision Promise, has one preclinical platform that it uses to vet its strategies. And that happens to be the Murine Clinical Trials program that we developed that's based on some genetically engineered mouse models. That's a major operation that took some time to dismantle in Seattle and move here. We're resurrecting it and going to expand it even greater so that that will serve as the platform before we bring any idea into a patient. This is the Pancreatic Cancer Center of Excellence. And I won't go through a lot of detail about all of these elements. Many of these elements were here previously. Whoops, let's go back again. Such as I mentioned, the rapid autopsy program. There's a high-risk program, an early detection program that was here already. Clinical trials were nascent, but we're expanding them rapidly, and we're linking in basic science to it more directly. Everything begins and ends with the patient. So we situate them both literally and figuratively at the center of everything that we do. And these links that you see here to each of the efforts are actually bidirectional. So information does flow in both directions and across these areas. I can just give you one quick example. In the early detection cohort, there will be genetic predispositions that are new, that will be identified, that are potentially contributory to the development of pancreas cancer. Well, how do you test that hypothesis? Well, we have the ability to genetically engineer and turn these genes on and off at will in the mouse model. The genome is sufficiently identical that we can swap those genes in and then determine the disease pathophysiology that develops. If, in fact, it's accurate and mimics the human disease, we can begin to develop early detection, prevention, and treatment strategies in that context, and then initiate those in the clinic. Whoops. Hello. All right. There were a couple of more slides. I guess this is a reminder to me. I'm not known for brevity, but this may be a way of inducing it. However, I'm going to override it and tell you a little bit about the slides that are missing. I wanted to describe the model of the clinic, the current model and what we're doing. I actually think this is a critical part of what we do. Frankly, it stems with the experience of taking care of my own father. He was diagnosed with metastatic pancreas cancer just as I finished my clinical training at one of the best places for clinical oncology in the nation, and I know that because all you have to do is ask them and they will tell you so. And I realized in taking care of him, being inside this system, when I had to go find a gastroenterologist, when I had to find a surgeon, when I had to find another medical oncology colleague, I was suddenly fraught with all of the same barriers, and I was on the inside. And as a family member, it was extremely difficult. It was emotionally charged, and it was an added burden that none of us needed. And it took days to weeks for me to assemble a team to take care of my father. My mother pointed out to me that that was nonsense, and that could not continue. So I do get my charge from the chancellor, but if I'm being perfectly honest with you, the highest power I have to answer to is her. And if and when I satisfy her, I promise you, I will have satisfied, I believe, everyone else in the room. So what do we do now? Now we have a common point of entry. The last slide would have shown you the hotline for pancreas cancer, 1-800-CURE-PANC. You call one phone number. Someone answers that phone, and the only question they ask you is, where are you now? Where have you been seen? That activates a process. We get all the records brought in here. If you get referred in through gastroenterology, if you get referred in through surgery, if you enter the system through medical oncology, all of that now comes to one number. Within 48 hours, we not only get those records, but we can do additional tests that are needed. We can do a biopsy if needed and have it evaluated. We can do additional imaging studies. Now, to be able to do that in 48 hours is not possible. Just ask any center across the country. It's not possible until it is. Until you ask your colleagues to make it possible. It's possible here. Within 48 hours, that workup is complete, and we will then assemble that army of disciplines. That was one of the other slides. So we come not with one representative from each of the disciplines, but we come 5 strong from surgical oncology. We come 4 strong from medical oncology. So we have multiple opinions from each of the disciplines, and we discuss each patient in real time. This is the real-time multidisciplinary clinic where the patient's sitting in a room at the end of the hallway and is waiting for the comprehensive care plan that we develop. This is what makes it much more than an academic exercise. This is not a tumor board that meets once a month to talk about the abstract notion of how you treat a cancer and fulfills an accreditation requirement, frankly. That's what tumor boards primarily do. When the patient is sitting at the end of the hallway, that conversation becomes real. Aha. In a way, I guess if you just talk long enough, in a way that becomes palpable and transforms. I have seen during the course of this discussion an initial care plan morph and evolve not even subtly, sometimes profoundly. Do you give the chemotherapy up front or do you go to the OR? That's actually a critical question. Does the chemotherapy come after? That does not get discussed in real time with everyone in the room. When you see patients one at a time, each of those disciplines evaluates what's before them. They dictate a letter. It gets sent on to the next practitioner within days or weeks or what have you. And then that practitioner takes the letter into account if it arrives in time and to see if it influences their thought process. You come out with a very different care plan. So this is the model. This is all completed, as I mentioned, in 48 hours. We do the visit, and then we go sit down with the patient. By the time they leave, they get an opinion from all of those disciplines, and they get all their appointments for the next 6 months scheduled. I believe that's how you take care of a pancreas cancer patient. This is the schedule. These are the disciplines. This is the agenda, the syllabus for that annual retreat. And coming out of this, we now have the agenda for our next retreat, which will happen within the next 2 months. The standard for that 2020 conference, which we've now had 3 or 4 of, each one of them has led to a clinical trial that's now being drafted, and we hope to bring into the clinic soon. This is that map that I wanted to show you. You probably recognize some of the names around the periphery. Well, now we get to add one right there. Frankly, as far as I'm concerned, any patient that gets seen at any one of these outstanding places, and I have friends and colleagues at all of them, they will either want to come here themselves or at a minimum, before they get treated, they will ask the question, what would Nebraska do? That's where we will be before long, if we're as successful as I know we can be. Some of the key hires to date that we've already made, I think this proposition that you all have created is an incredible recruiting tool. We've been able to recruit some outstanding talent to these key positions, and so we're transforming both what we do and the pace at which we do it in a way, frankly, that supersedes even the lovely program I thought I had built in the Pacific Northwest. There it is. I think we can create a new way. I think we can create a better way. I know we're going to create the Nebraska way. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sunil. And lastly, for our program this morning, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Ann Anderson-Berry. Ann serves in many roles, former chair and president of our faculty senate, an internationally regarded neonatologist, but she is here today to talk about the Child Health Research Institute, which she has directed since its inception. Ann.
Thank you, Dr. Gold. Thank you, President Carter and the Board of Regents, for the opportunity to talk with you today. It's quite an honor. I'd like to start with a brief history of the Child Health Research Institute. This is UNMC's newest institute, approved by the Board of Regents in June of 2017, and subsequently by the Board of Children's Nebraska, after years of planning to advance impactful child health research in the state of Nebraska. CHRI is the only institute with an external partner, a critical relationship with Children's Nebraska, where most regional pediatric patient care is delivered. Once formed, CHRI's vision was clear. Every child will have an equal opportunity for a healthy life. Our mission impacts our structure, so we must improve the health of children everywhere through innovative research, collaborative discovery, community engagement, and advocacy. The Research Institute is composed of 6 areas of emphasis: global health, genetics, development, exposures and injuries, pediatric cancer, lifespan diseases, heart diseases, and health services, policy, and population health. Our investigators identify with one or more of these areas of emphasis and collaborate and conduct research in that area. It is very important for meaningful collaboration that CHRI has an open membership. We currently have 409 members spanning all NU campuses. While UNMC comprises the most of our members, we also have members from UNL, UNO, UNK, and other prestigious institutions across the country. CHRI members fall into 4 categories. We have our full professors, our associate members such as our bedside nurses and research coordinators, affiliate members who are faculty at other institutions with whom our researchers collaborate, and very importantly, our trainee members. including undergraduates, medical students, residents, and graduate students. We aim to train a sustainable pipeline of child health investigators. We support our investigators with robust resources, including study coordinators, biostatisticians, grant support staff, and scientific writers. CHRI has important internal funding opportunities to support and develop our researchers. Our faculty can apply for grants of up to $50,000. Additionally, we offer a health equity grant at $50,000 each year, and our trainee members are eligible to submit a $15,000 mini grant application under the supervision of a faculty member. Our most prestigious award is our CHRI Scholars Award. This commitment of $150,000 a year for a 3-year duration is paired with a robust mentoring program and develops our most talented faculty members to get them started on a path of extramural funding. Our first scholar, Gwen Scar, is now funded by an NIHK award. Current scholar, Jeffrey Solomon, has a $230,000 AHA CDA award. That's a career development award. And Eric Peoples, our third scholar, is funded by a $7.9 million NIH R01 as a co-investigator studying the impact of opioid exposure in neonates and the impact on their brain. We have designed the structure of CHRI to help investigators obtain extramural funding to support their work, a metric that we follow closely. Grant applications has been increasing year over year since 2018. Even more importantly, we see a concomitant increase in CHRI's faculty's successful grant applications, the majority of which come from federal agencies like the NIH and the CDC. 2021 was particularly successful for CHRI with COVID research grants, including conducting research on the pediatric COVID vaccine. These increases in our federal funding are one critical measure of our early success. Another important measure of CHRI's success is our philanthropic funding. The Pediatric Cancer Research Group has generous sources of philanthropic funding, including $300,000 in the past 2 years from Jake Fest and Kiewit. Our close partner, Team Jack, has donated $3.5 million since 2018, vaulting our medulloblastoma cancer group forward, positioning us to make phenomenal discoveries so our scientists will make an impact in the treatment of this deadly disease. Additionally, the state of Nebraska has invested significant resources in CHRI to support our pediatric cancer research. We currently have $4.5 million a year in state appropriations to fight pediatric cancer. This is a critical investment in the lives of Nebraska children. As you may have heard, pediatric brain cancer is disproportionately high in our state, and I am confident that CHRI's investigators will lead the way to develop new therapies to save Nebraska children. Our cancer investigators continue to utilize these financial resources to increase their NIH funding in an incredibly competitive National Cancer Institute funding environment, increasing grants year over year since 2016. An important part of our work is disseminating these investigators' groundbreaking science. At our annual scientific conference, 120 scientists from across the region came together to present their work and to discuss new developments. This November, we will again bring these individuals together for scientific interactions that will drive discovery. CHRI also has a pediatric research forum that features 80 to 100 projects each year from trainees sponsored by our faculty, a great opportunity for students to present their first scientific work. Each August, we host the Pediatric Cancer Research Symposium. This year brought together Governor Pillen, Chancellor Gold, and Shanda Chacon, the CEO of Children's Nebraska. They discussed important ways that we can make an impact in the care of children with pediatric cancer here in Nebraska and beyond. To quote Governor Pillen, it's all about our kids and Nebraska families. You may have heard that there's a shortage in the STEM workforce, and our child health research workforce is just not large enough to fill our need. To prepare for the future, we consider community engagement critical to developing the next generation of scientists. To this event, we have strong relationships and programs with Girls Inc. Omaha, Completely Kids, and North Star. We deliver engaging programs interacting with middle school and high school students, either here on UNMC's campus or at these innovative after-school programs. This hand-on programming is designed to engage students in STEM and encourages them to consider science courses and careers. Pipeline development continues into our summer undergraduate research student program. CHRI investigators recently hosted 47 students. Of these students, 62% were enrolled in an NU system school, and of the 2020 cohort, 50% are currently working at UNMC or are enrolled in a UNMC educational program. After the undergraduate degree, CHRI pipeline development continues with our support of the medical student summer research program. Our UNMC medical students are mentored by our faculty physician scientists in hypothesis-driven research and have presented their work at regional, national, and international meetings. Many students finish the work by publishing a first author publication, which is a great addition to their resume as they apply for competitive residencies and fellowships. Several students have completed our summer undergraduate research program, our MSSRP program, and are in residencies and fellowships training here at UNMC with plans to stay in science. This is building Nebraska workforce, mentoring the students that we want to stay here and help Nebraska thrive. In addition, faculty membership and mentorship is critical for CHRI. We are currently recruiting for senior scientists practicing neonatology and infectious disease who are committed to helping develop our early career scientific faculty. I'm excited to share that CHRI was active in helping recruit several recent investigators, including Dr. Linda Harris and Dr. Mohan Krishnan, who both have new R01s, a very prestigious grant studying the development of placenta and neonatal bowel injury. Next, I'd like to share a video featuring CHRI investigators at work for Nebraska kids.
A lot of clinical care. We take care of really sick kids and we do a phenomenal job with that. But if we really think deeper about that, the way we find out how to take care of really sick kids is through research. We've had an ongoing relationship with research at Children's for decades, and the exciting thing about that is that it is growing in capacity. We have a very special institute. It's called the Child Health Research Institute, or CHRI. And this is an investment of Children's with UNMC to bring the best, most accessible resources and cutting-edge tools to our talented investigators. It's a combination of scientists, labs, IRB, pediatric research coordinators, everything that goes into making research happen on all different fronts together to work for kids. We have incredibly talented scientists with incredibly novel ideas, and CHRI gives us the resources to help them take those from idea to innovation and impact at the bedside. The appetite for research comes from our patients. All you have to do is go to a single bedside, one bedside, and you'll see that we can do better and we have to do better. The kids we're taking care of today can't wait for tomorrow's innovations. We have to do it now.
So as you can see, CHRI is impacting children today and the future lives of Nebraska families ongoing. So I'd like to thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you very much. Special thanks to those that put these great presentations together. I hope it gives our regents and our invited guests today a look at the past, the history, where we are today, and most importantly, a view into tomorrow. So I'd close and simply say, go Labs, the best is yet to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Gold. I'm so thrilled that you accepted our offer to change the world, whether it be Ebola, whether it be the COVID-19. I remember we were going to have a meeting, and you were not at this meeting. I said, "Where's Dr. Gold?" And well, he's in Washington D.C. meeting with the Vice President of the United States to talk about COVID-19. and then closer to home, I think with the recruitment through the RHOP program and attracting the next Katie Schultes to come to the University of Nebraska Medical Center and keep our small communities thriving is so vitally important to our state. We could talk about tax relief all we want, but if we don't have health care in those counties are going to die. So thank you for all you're doing now and the recruitment of experts down the road as well. Thank you. Okay, at the beginning of each Board of Regents meeting, we take time to recognize those persons who all too often don't receive the recognition and credit that they deserve. The Board of Regents believes that it is vitally important that we acknowledge your commitment as well as your contributions to the university. As the kudos recipients are announced, please come to the podium and join the Regent making the presentation. Following each presentation, we will take a photo that will appear on our website. The President, the Chancellor, the recipient's family, and the supporters will be invited to join in the photo. So our first kudos recipient is Rushan Harvey from the University of Nebraska at Kearney, and the award will be presented by Regent Molina.
On behalf of the Board of Regents, I'm pleased to introduce from the University of Nebraska at Kearney, Assistant Director of TRIO Student Support Services, Rushan Harvey. Rushan is known for student success and helping students overcome barriers as he advises 92 TRIO students, inspiring them through meaningful one-on-one relationships, motivational speeches at TRIO events, and leadership in the classroom. TRIO refers to federal programs created to increase access for first-generation students, students with disabilities, and students who meet federal income guidelines so they can achieve good academic standing while improving retention and graduation rates. Rushan relates to TRIO participants because he was one. Rushan was in UNK's first TRIO class. He found the support and guidance he needed and is passionate about giving back. He tells students TRIO is here to help them navigate the higher ed road to graduation. And countless students have walked the commencement stage due, in part, to the support that they have received from him. The national slogan is TRIO Works, and he lives that every day. Colleagues agree, it is a pleasure to work with Rushan. The smile always on his face radiates his enthusiasm and passion for his work and the pride he has for UNK. This transplant from Stuart, Florida, has been granted 2 UNK degrees and has worked at UNK for 17 years. His wife, Jennifer Harvey, is director of UNK's Thompson Scholars Learning Community. They have 3 daughters, Jessamine, and twins, Jalissa and Janessa. Rushan has served as head football coach at Kearney Catholic High School since 2016 and is a former Shrine Bowl coach. Today, his wife Jen and Vice Chancellor for Enrollment Management, Kelly Bartling, along with Aaron Estes, Director of Academic Success, Associate Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, George Holman, are all here as we recognize Rushan for exemplary service in making a meaningful, impactful difference for so many students. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Rushan, and thank you. Regent Peckish will present the Kudos Award to Matthew Dwyer from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln.
Thank you. The Board of Regents is pleased to present a Kudos Award to Matthew Dwyer, the Senior Proposal Development Coordinator in the Office of Research and Economic Development at UNL. Matthew joined the Office of Proposal Development in 2013 helping advance the research mission by providing exceptional support for proposal development and contributing strategic expertise to increase institutional research capacity and competitiveness. Over the past decade, he has partnered with UNL proposers to secure $84 million in external funding by co-authoring, reviewing, and refining the narratives of individual investigators and large-scale grant proposals. The value of his contributions is noted by one faculty member as instrumental in helping to put together and win a large, complex grant involving 9 institutions across the country. Another faculty colleague noted that his ability to organize, edit, and synthesize texts was a tremendous asset to the group and was probably the difference between achieving a competitive package and one that would not be considered. Matthew is a vital contributor to the Research Development Fellows Program, a year-long program designed to provide early career faculty with information, resources, and approaches necessary to position themselves for success in securing external funding. Faculty who complete the program have about 2.5 times more externally funded projects active at any given time than their peers, and the average size of those awards is double. The retention rate for the fellows at UNL is 12% higher than those of other faculty. Matthew mentors and aids UNL faculty selected for the National Science Foundation Early Career Development Program, a highly prestigious recognition of individuals with the potential to serve as academic role models in research and education. Career awards to UNL faculty have tripled since 2017, and most awards occur in the first time faculty member submits their career proposal. Matthew and his colleagues earned a 2023 Innovation Award from the National Organization of Research Development Proposals, given to individuals, groups, or teams who leverage unique skills or resources to kickstart innovation and research development in ways that generate evidence of promise and demonstrable results. Through dedicated customer service, extraordinary work ethic, and a positive attitude, Matthew Dwyer continues to support and advance the research mission of the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Joining Matthew today are his parents, Julie and Mark Dwyer, his partner, Austin Christensen, Assistant Vice Chancellor for Research, Nathan Meyer, and Tisha Mullen, Director of Proposal Development. Please give me a hand in thanking Matthew Dwyer for his dedication to the University of Nebraska-Lincoln.
Congratulations, Matthew, and thank you. Next, Regent Schultes will present the Kudos Award to Giovanni Jones of the University of Nebraska Medical Center.
On behalf of the Board of Regents, I am pleased to present a Kudos Award to Giovanni Jones, Manager of Employee Training and Development within UNMC Human Resources. Giovanni's nominator called her a true shining star and applauded her energy, commitment, and work, which consistently exceeds expectations. Another quote about Giovanni: she has elevated every program she's been tasked to take over or create, and does so while improving the processes and procedures for greater efficiency and effectiveness. At UNMC, Giovanni is responsible for HR employee training and development, a role she's held since 2017. She single-handedly plans, develops, and coordinates and evaluates the employee training and development program called Reimagining You. This program ensures that each year, UNMC employees are offered 2 semesters of professional development courses. During the 2020 pandemic, Giovanni pivoted from in-person training to virtual training and collaborated with UNO's Human Resources to jointly offer 39 virtual courses, 20 of which she coordinated. Beyond employee training, Giovanni provides information and guidance to the campus mentoring program, and she helps deliver programming for Black History Month and Administrative Professionals Day. She plans, coordinates, and facilitates UNMC's annual Culture Fest event and serves on the UY Diversity Officers Collaborative. Today, Giovanni is joined by her aunt, Diane Watson Hodges, her cousin, Linda Washington, Associate Director in Human Resources, Linda Cunningham, and Assistant Vice Chancellor in Human Resources, Sarah Glodden Carlson. Please join me in thanking Giovanni for her work and commitment to developing outstanding training programs for UNMC staff and faculty.
You want to come on down? Hold on a second. Come on down. Hold on a minute. Congratulations, Giovanni. Y. May from the University of Nebraska at Omaha is our final kudos recipient, and her award will be presented by Regent Latoro.
Getting a little bit clumsy today. But the Board of Regents is pleased to present a kudos award to Y. May Furman, the Director of Academic Advising and the Certification Officer for the College of Education, Health, and Human Sciences at the University of Nebraska at Omaha. Hannah Wanzenried Solberg, an advisor at the college, says, Y. May is the type of person that is task-oriented and leads by calm, steady example. She isn't one to seek accolades, but simply serves her unit and the wider UNO community to the best of her abilities. She has shown humility and growth when mistakes were made, gives grace and support to her team, and constantly refines her leadership process, end quote. Furman's talent for improving processes has led to the creation of innovative methods to track student success and support their journey as Mavericks. Y. May worked with systems intelligence and data analytics to develop a more robust academic advising report for units to track enrollment, advising holds, noting specific course enrollment, and other essential data. This report has been critical in retention and outreach efforts. Today, Y. May has brought the following guests: Dr. Neil Grangenet, Interim Dean of UNO College of Education, Health, and Human Sciences, and her spouse, Christopher Furman. Please join me in thanking Y. May for her dedication to the University of Nebraska at Omaha and to the College of Education, Health, and Human Sciences.
Stand behind. There we go. Congratulations, Y. May, and thank you. While our kudos recipients and their guests are most welcome to stay and observe the balance of the business of our meeting, if you wish to leave, we would take no offense, and you may do so at this time. Thank you for joining us. As we close our time of recognition, I'd like to recognize our guests from Leadership UNK who are observing our board meeting as part of their professional development. Would you please stand and be recognized? Thank you for coming. We have no resolutions, no hearings. President Carter, would you like to make some remarks?
Thank you, Chairman Claire, and again, thanks to UNMC for a great visit, for hosting us. Thanks for everybody being here. I know we've had a long morning already, and we have business to attend to, but I do want to take an opportunity to talk about a couple of things. It's important that we have a discussion about our 5-point plan that we shared with you in June in response to this board's charge to reimagine ourselves in this challenging higher education landscape. I told you in June that this plan would be our highest priority going forward. I know there's been some significant personal news for me. I'm not going to talk too much more about that today, but I do want you to know that I am personally committed for my last 3 months here as being your university president, being fully focused on implementing these strategies that were written in this 5-point plan. My goal is to set this board, our vice presidents, our chancellors, this entire university so that we can seamlessly keep moving forward and keep this upward trajectory that will be put into place by the end of the year. Chairman Clare said it best in his op-ed that was published just a couple weeks ago. We are full steam ahead. We can't afford not to be full steam ahead. This is the time for us to rethink the way we operate and invest in priorities that will move this university and our state forward. Institutions that are stagnant are going to find themselves on the sidelines as higher education continues to evolve and change. The University of Nebraska is not going to be one of those institutions. Our challenges are real, but we are not going to use them but for anything but to become better, to grow, to become more competitive, more efficient, and more impactful for our entire state. That means, as I've said before, that we're going to have to be comfortable being uncomfortable and learning to play offense and defense at the same time. Yes, we're going to have to talk about cuts. But yes, those conversations are going to continue to be hard, and they're going to even get harder. But if all we talk about is cuts, we're never going to have a growth mindset. That's why our 5-point plan was established, and that's what it's all about. Even as we address our shortfall in the near term, we still have to play the long game and find opportunities to invest and grow. The Building Renewal Fund that will come before you later in this agenda today is a great example of this type of thinking. And I'll say more about that when the item comes to you. With LB 384, the state of Nebraska is making the largest capital investment in the history of the University of Nebraska. We have over $400 million in facilities projects happening on our campuses right now, thanks to this visionary legislation championed by Senator John Stinner and approved by the legislature and the governor. And oh, by the way, over 90% of that work is going to Nebraska businesses. Do we need to be disciplined with our resources in order to carry out the requirements of this legislation? Absolutely. But I would argue that it is exactly the type of work that needs to move forward, even in times of challenge. Our students and our faculty deserve high-quality facilities, and facilities are an important part of our recruitment and retention strategies. The investments we're making today will benefit Nebraskans for generations to come. So with that introduction, let me review the action steps that we've taken on our 5-point plan since our last meeting. We've launched a system-wide zero-based budget review to carefully examine every expenditure to make sure we're providing the best return for students and taxpayers. So let me be clear about what that is. The goal is really exactly what the name implies. We're going to be asking ourselves, if we were starting from zero, how would we build an efficient and effective University of Nebraska system? We've launched a review of decentralized and distributed functions to include information technology, facilities, public relations, communications, business operations, and student services. We will look at duplicate staffing and ask ourselves whether we are missing opportunities to take advantage of our scale and capture savings that we could reinvest into priorities like academic programs and competitive salaries. Now, I also want to be clear, zero-based budget review is not about reviewing academic programs. This is about the operations and the administration of the entire university system. I've asked the chancellors to submit their reports to my office by December 1st. These submissions will inform our conversations going forward. And I will acknowledge this is a fast-paced course of action, but it's required. We've said this before, but it bears repeating. We have no predetermined answers in this process. I want to be clear about that. I have not tasked any chancellor with a target or a specific dollar cut. We know what the big number is, but I have not assigned that or proportioned that to the campuses. I know this is a lot of work on a tight timeline, but these documents will help us be thoughtful about the best possible alignment for the University of Nebraska. Again, I'm going to say this again. At this stage, no campus has been assigned a cut by either this board or by the Office of the President. We know we have a near-term shortfall of $58 million. That's real, and we will achieve that savings. Quite the opposite, though, when we talk about how we're going to do this. We have asked us to reject the peanut butter approach of the past and think differently about how to manage our resources. We think this process will put us in a good position to do exactly that. I've cautioned our teams that we have to be realistic. Any choice that we make is going to be hard, and any choice will involve some trade-offs. For example, if we decide there is value in 5 separate business operations in a single university system, we can do that. But the trade-off is that we're going to have to look further into our academic enterprise to find these cuts. These are the kinds of difficult conversations we're going to have with the vice presidents and chancellors. We have to decide which consequences we can live with and what decisions might make the most sense for those who entrust us with these precious resources. Some other actions. We're working through good inputs from our financial aid directors about our Regents scholarship program and total cost of attendance scholarship models. Our next step is to ask the University of Nebraska Foundation to assess fundraising feasibility. Our goal is to be able to offer much more competitive scholarship packages to top students and attract them to the University of Nebraska system. We're building a dashboard. In fact, I can tell you today that it is complete, that compares our performances against all of the AAU membership criteria. We're scheduled to brief Chancellors Bennett and Gold on this model next week. When fully implemented, the dashboard will allow us to measure ourselves in real time against AAU standards. We won't ever get back into the AAU without honestly assessing where we are now, and we do intend to get back in, however long that takes. Similarly, we are building a dashboard that will give you the ability to monitor the performance of our academic programs in real time against the Coordinating Commission for Post-Secondary Education Standards. For example, if we have programs that are falling behind CCPE metrics, you should know that it is occurring so you can step in, ask questions, or take actions as necessary in the interests of students and taxpayers. And we are underway with our review of our investments and our system-wide institutes to assess whether we can achieve a better return in terms of federal research funding, which is a key metric for AAU membership. So as you can see, we're working on our plan day and night. We realize that in parallel to our university-wide efforts, some of our chancellors and their teams are having conversations about reductions on their campuses. First and foremost, you should know I encourage those conversations. Unfortunately, the reality of our enrollment declines in recent years have made these conversations necessary. I do want to say a word about this before I conclude my remarks. I know this board is already hearing some constituent feedback about potential cuts that are being discussed at places like UNK, and no doubt you're going to continue to hear feedback as we go forward. Discussions about eliminating academic programs is very difficult and can be painful, and yes, I know it's emotional. I know they're tough for our chancellors. From my chair, if these conversations become necessary, we're going to adhere to 3 core principles. Number 1, programs that would be phased out in any way that would allow current students to complete their degree. We are going to take care of our students. What that means is if you're in an academic program that's destined to be sunsetted, we will grandfather those students so they will not lose their path. Number 2, we will honor shared governance. I know there's a lot of conversation between faculty, staff, and students, and many of them have had those conversations with me and this board. I encourage that type of conversation. I encourage the transparency. Stakeholder feedback will be welcomed and considered, but we will also acknowledge the fiscal realities in front of us and the need to make decisions to sustain the University of Nebraska. And number 3, we're going to be honest and forthcoming about the performance of our programs. I think our board, taxpayers, elected leaders, and our university community deserve a basic level of transparency about things, about how many students are enrolled in some of our programs and how many graduates we are producing. As many of you know, the Coordinating Commission for Post-Secondary Education has set minimum performance standards for Nebraska bachelor's degree programs of at least 7 graduates per year over a 5-year average. We have a number of programs that do not meet that standard. and those are going to have to be discussed, and that's just the reality. We have programs that are falling short of the CCPE minimum standards year after year. I know Nebraskans would expect us to ask ourselves, is it time for a hard conversation about whether taxpayers should keep subsidizing those programs? Again, there are no predetermined answers, but we have to live within our means. If we are unwilling to look in one area for cuts, we must find the cuts elsewhere. Nobody is going to be immune. Discussions about subsidizing other campuses because one campus thinks that the cuts are unfair is just not going to happen. So although Chancellor Christensen brought this in good faith to the UNK campus, I think the UNK campus was afraid of what the conversation would be. And I think that conversation needs to continue. And those are happening, by the way, on all the other campuses. In accordance with this board's direction, we will not risk weakening the entire institution by spreading the reductions across the enterprise. Our options are limited, but we can and must be strategic. And let me be clear to the end here. This is not a drill just to find cost savings. If we don't do this now, the structural deficit gets bigger. We run the risk of losing entire major programs, even colleges, if we don't do this. So this isn't about looking for who to fire. This isn't about which programs are not performing. This is about survival of the overall institution. And this is how we will protect ourselves and eventually grow. And just as a reminder, from the day I got here in the office of the president, I've cut the full-time equivalent, the FTE, of that office by 25%. 25% fewer people are working in the office of the president. I've had to make those difficult conversations. I've had to bring people in my office and tell them that we're going in a different direction. And every one of those people have either found another job for them or somewhere else for them to work. So this is about the positions, but it's also about taking care of our people. And I commit to each and every one of you that on every campus, and I have total trust and faith and confidence in the chancellors who are leading this effort, they get it, that we will take care of our people. So I continue to appreciate this board's support for our vision. I look forward to updating you further in December. Mr. Chairman, if there are no questions, I will turn the microphone back to you.
Thank you. Is there any questions from my colleagues? Okay, the standing rules of the board provide that any person may appear and address the board on items that are not on the agenda if an individual provides the corporate secretary with 24 hours notice. Each person wishing to speak will be given 3 minutes to make remarks. We were contacted by 4 individuals wishing to speak on a topic that is not on today's agenda. So Amber Wood would be the first one.
Thank you for having me. I have a video. I didn't know if they could play it while I speak without sound, since I don't have time. Okay. Bill, thank you for putting me on the agenda. My name is Amber Wood. Thank you, Regents. The main reason I am here, November 13th, 2022, I got a phone call from my daughter's phone. It wasn't my daughter on the other line. It was her friend saying she'd been shot 8 times. Which is strange because my daughter didn't let anyone on her phone. Now, the main reason I'm here is because still to this day, I have not spoken to one doctor, one nurse, one EMT, anyone who tried to help my daughter. And I don't think that's right. I'd like to know why. I want to talk about the trauma policies and procedures for the victims of gun violence and what I experienced that evening and since. The only call that I've gotten, in fact, from UNMC was not even 24 hours later asking for her organs. We had no clue about anything other than we didn't get to see her body for 5 days. When I pulled up to the hospital, in the car we were stopped. The car was stopped by security. This was a mass shooting in Omaha, and we just had another one. They had us sit there and sit there I got out of the car because I could see the door and I wanted to go find out what was going on with my daughter. I was stopped by a young security guard, and as I'm zombie-like walking to the door, racing to see my daughter, he stops me and he says, "You cannot go in." And I said, "I feel like I'm gonna be sick." And he said, "Well, go puke on the grass so you don't get it on my shoes." A police officer, I don't know if it was a police officer or a campus officer, came, had me in her car. She is frantically on the phone asking, basically saying, "What do I do with this mother?" They had no clue what to do. I would have presumed, since you are now the new trauma hospital, that there was a procedure in place. There was a plan for this. High school's plan for mass shootings. I just assumed there was something, but no one that night knew what was going on. They told my daughter and my boyfriend and my parents to go park in the Don and Millie's parking lot and wait. I didn't get into the hospital for an hour. This lady drove me around the hospital and kept asking what to do with me. By the time I got in, the only people I saw were police and a chaplain. I wasn't allowed to see my daughter's body, citing she was evidence. My eyeballs are not going to affect evidence if I could just see her through glass and know. For 5 days, I just had to sit in my mind, be told that she was gone, but I had never seen it. We're almost a year into this, November 13th. I still have yet to get a phone call back. I have left several messages to speak to anyone who tried to help my child. Not one phone call back.
We're at
The
3
mass
minutes, if you could.
Okay, the mass shootings haven't stopped. Another topic that isn't for today, but UNMC is 15 minutes from the most crime-ridden area in Omaha. She probably didn't have that long. I now feel guilty because I didn't do her wishes about donating soft tissue because I didn't have the time. But all I get is the back and forth of the hospital telling me the police say we can't talk to you. The police say absolutely not, that is not it. It's the hospital. I'm stuck in the middle. I'm looking for help. And I don't know if this happens all the time. I just feel like there has to be a better way for victims to be able to at least know and see that their child is gone, and then to get follow-up on what happened to them medically. I had to ask my friend who's an ER doctor in another state. So I appreciate your time, and I can send you an email if you want for more information and a synopsis of this. I'm desperate for some answers here because I still don't know what medically happened to my daughter other than she was shot 8 times. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber. We're sorry about your daughter. Our next speaker, Ajay Mal Bindin. Okay, our next speaker, Greg Epp.
My name is Greg Epp, and I'm here to speak in regard to fairness and equity between student organizations. Graham Spanier was chancellor of the University of Nebraska in the mid-1990s, and he is credited with revitalizing the Affirmative Action Office at Nebraska. He went from Nebraska to Penn State University, where he was president until he was convicted of not protecting children under the Sandowski sexual abuse case. His career is well documented. Spanier, though, was quite clever at Nebraska. He set up the LGBTQ office under student government That office is supported by student fees. It is my understanding that students can opt out of this part of student fees, but from what I've seen, there is nothing that tells students that they're paying for this office and that they have the right to opt out. You just have to know that you can. There are approximately 600 student organizations, but only a very select few have offices on campus. My question is, how is it that the LGBT group gets an office in the student union while virtually all other organizations have to reside off campus and apply to use the student union? That is discriminating in favor of the LGBTQ. I need to make it perfectly clear that the LGBTQ have the right to have an organization just like all the other 600 do. But all I've ever been told is that the LGBT community deserves an office in the student union because they suffer so much. I would suggest groups supporting biblical views need an offices on campus to minister to students. The Board of Regents has policies, and in those policies, student organizations cannot discriminate against or cannot violate, I should say, any university's non-discrimination policies. Yet you're discriminating against all other organizations when the LGBTQ receive favorable treatment compared to other organizations, including having their office in the student union and being funded by student fees, which is taxpayer funding. I would assume that you're not going to extend taxpayer funding to all 600 organizations, so something needs to change there. You can correct this, okay? You can correct this inequity. That is, in your policies, it says, the university reserves the right to change any policy or regulation affecting students. All right, thank you.
Okay, our next speaker, Carolyn Epp. Caroline? Carolyn.
Last week, on a national news source, my ears perked up with Nebraska being mentioned. My heart sank when hearing a professor from UNL was receiving a $200,000 grant, ultimately funded by our tax dollar, to create a mentoring program connecting seasoned LGBTQ with youth who are struggling to find their way, and even that without parental knowledge. I do not have letters behind my name other than MOM, but I do have the law of nature backing what I say. The organs of our bodies have specific functions. To be at their best, they must receive proper care. With our broken world, it is so easy to desire what does not lead to good health. But if you were a doctor and your patient with a malfunctioning organ, would you encourage them to intensify the lifestyle that brought on trouble in the first place? Our sex organs with emotions tied together were made for marriage with the opposite sex. Much abuse has taken place with our sex organs and emotions, which are integrally intertwined. Like 80% of all imprisoned criminals, the majority of kids struggling with who they really are do not have fathers in their home. Many of these kids have experienced extreme physical and emotional abuse as children. As for good health, our children need to be shown the healthy way to live, not to be put with those who are living against the laws of nature. For the law of the Lord is perfect, reviving the soul. Reviving the soul. Our kids need the reviving of their souls. In simple terms, we have been going the wrong way on a one-way street, even encouraging our kids to get in the lane of oncoming traffic. Or in another way, telling the car maker he had it all wrong, with us putting oil where the gas belongs. Deep, and I mean deep in our hearts, we all know the truth.
1 minute.
Let's start walking it out with true love. Let's direct them to a life-giving life. And again, for the law of the Lord is perfect, reviving the soul. Thank you.
Thank you. The standing rules provide further that anyone desiring to speak concerning an item on the agenda for this meeting, regardless of notice, may do so. As you come forward, please identify yourself, complete the sign-in sheet. You'll have 3 minutes to address the board. Is there any people that would like to come forward to talk about an item on the agenda? Okay, there being no further persons wishing to speak, I now declare the opportunity for public comment closed. And we're going to take a 10-minute break. We'll reconvene at 11:10. Thank you.
Good. What's that? My mic's on? All right, 2 minutes, and then we'll be coming back. 2-minute warning.
Uh, 30 seconds. Okay, we'll go back on the record. It's now time to consider the consent agenda. The consent agenda, as indicated by its name, is moved and voted on as a group of action items as opposed to the administrative agenda where items are considered and discussed individually. With that said, unless one of my colleagues on the board wishes to consider any of these items listed on the having any of these items listed on the administrative agenda, I would invite a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion. Second.
Thank you. Is there, let's call the roll.
Regent Peckish?
Yes.
Regent Schultes?
Yes.
Regent Latoro?
Yes.
Regent Molina?
Yes.
Regent O'Connor?
Yes.
Regent Schaefer?
Yes.
Regent Shear?
Yes.
Regent Stark?
Yes.
Regent Whites?
Yes.
Regent Wilmot? Would you like to approve the consent agenda? Yes. Regent Clare?
Yes.
Regent Kenny?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Okay, I'll now ask President Carter to guide us through the administrative agenda.
Under Business and Finance, item 11B1 seeks your approval to adopt Regents Policy 6.3.4 and establish the University of Nebraska Building Renewal Fund. As you'll recall, in 2021, Governor Ricketts and the Nebraska legislature approved the university's deferred maintenance proposal, LB 384, which provides funding matched dollar for dollar by the university for building renewal projects through 2062. I'll ask Chris Kaborg to maybe add just a few additional comments. Chris, if you mind come up to the microphone.
Thank you, President Carter. Good morning, board. Just maybe this is kind of the capstone moment on a process that this board really undertook about 5-6 years ago when we had a long discussion about the facilities on our campuses, the deferred maintenance needs on them, and how we would come up with a long-term strategic plan to address them. And that took a lot of strategic thought, a lot of leadership, and we don't need to go through all the history on that, but it started in 2018 when we really addressed how we finance projects going forward, modernizing our bond financing, refinancing over $500 million of our debt portfolio at 2.97% for over 30 years. Then it turned into LB 384, which President Carter already made some comments about, the $400 million state-supported deferred maintenance program led by Senator Stinner. Also financing projects for over 40 years at less than 3%, considering today where we have 2-year interest rates at over 5%. You can imagine the amount of savings that we are now saving. I think at the time we said we were saving taxpayers $1.5 billion with these strategic thoughts. I can guarantee you that is well north of that if we were to try to do that today. So one of the requirements of LB 384 is that we put 2% of those of the project costs into a fund to help address future needs, and so we intend to put that, to codify that with board policy, and that is the proposal before you today. It will take discipline, it will take strategic foresight, but by doing it pragmatically, consistently, over time we can provide resources not only for future board, but future leadership, so that we can deliver on the promise that we made the legislature and the governor that the university will not have to come back to future legislatures for state support to help for debt service and other financing. So I just want to thank the board for their foresight and their leadership. Happy to answer any questions, but we're really excited about the project.
Thank you, Chris. And as I made my opening remarks today, I talked about playing offense and defense. This action is part of playing offense. When the year 2062 comes around and we do not need any more money to sustain our buildings, we will have put ourselves in the enviable position of almost no other public university in the nation. And it's the foresight of this board, the legislature, and when they write the 200-year history of the University of Nebraska, this action is likely to have its own chapter. So I want to say thank you to everybody that has supported this. This item was reviewed by the Business and Finance Committee, and I recommend it to you for your approval.
All right, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Call the roll.
Regent Schultes,
Yes. Yes, sorry.
Regent Latoro,
Yes.
Regent Molina,
Yes.
Regent Peckish,
Yes.
Regent Schaefer,
Yes.
Regent Shear,
Yes.
Regent Stark,
Yes.
Regent Whites,
Yes.
Regent Wilmot,
Yes.
Regent Clare,
Yes.
Regent Kenny,
Yes.
Regent O'Connor.
Yes.
The motion passes.
The next three items relate to the Memorial Stadium Improvement Project. Athletic Director Alberts and his team have been working diligently on a plan that will set the stage for the next 100 years at Memorial Stadium. The planning has been informed by the recent fan survey, and potential improvements are being evaluated with the goals of providing student athletes with top-notch facilities and enhancing the fan experience, while also maintaining history and character of this iconic facility. We do have Athletic Director Trev Alberts with us today. Trev, if you wouldn't mind coming up to the podium. I'm going to ask Trev to just kind of walk through some of the details. I know the committees have heard this already. So Trev, if you wouldn't just begin to give an overview. We'll cover each of the items individually and by vote.
Sure. Thank you, President Carter, and thank you, members of the board. I appreciate your engagement on the project, and I've had a chance to meet with most of you individually or in committee, and I'm just grateful for your support. First, I just want to say that, in essence, as you mentioned, President Carter, this is born out of a survey of our fan base that 22,000 people responded to. And as we started thinking about a 100-year-old iconic facility and what the next 100 years looks like in maintaining a business strategy that will lead to success. And I want to point out, for me, obviously we want to have world-class facilities. The outcomes of this type of project are in terms of modernization, fan comfort, those types of things are really, really important. But this has quickly evolved for me into a long-term business strategy in terms of the viability of the University of Nebraska's athletic department. And so, as you all know, lots of changes happening within college athletics. And one of the things, a couple things that we're really, really proud of in our athletic department. And past leadership deserves a lot of credit for this. But our athletic department doesn't receive state taxpayer dollars or student fees to fund our operations, and that's really important to us. Secondly, we're really proud of the investment we've been able to make in women's athletics. And our women's athletics programs are a differentiator for us relative to many of our peers because of that investment. And we want to maintain that opportunity to have a business strategy that's really not for today. This is really not about tomorrow. This is about the future. This is for the next 25 to 50 years. Because from my perspective, one of the most challenging things that could happen to the University of Nebraska-Lincoln is if the athletic department didn't have a sound strategy to ensure independence financially from our campus in terms of taxpayer funds and student fees. And secondly, I will just say this. We're well aware of the size and scope and the challenge of the project. This will be hard. I've been called a dreamer. That's okay. But we have a strategy and a process that, when followed at the University of Nebraska during my time there, led to $130 million of facility upgrades. That really was transformational for that campus. So I want to be very clear here. We will cut the cloth to fit the quilt, right? So in our planning and estimation, if any of our anticipated sources either don't materialize or fall short of our expectation, we will alter our strategy and alter the total scope of our project. And I want to be very clear about that. I know that's really important to you all. The second thing I want to be very clear about is because of how important this project is to the university and its Board of Regents, we fully look forward to and anticipate much collaboration and integration with all of you as we move through this process. It'll be critically important for you to help us as we navigate through what is, quite frankly, a challenging process. As Ted has mentioned previously, we're going to try to fix the plane while we're flying it. There's going to be disruptions, and it's not going to be easy. But the cost of inaction, from my perspective, is too great here. And so I'll stop with that, and I know allow questions or whatever sort of comments many of you have, if that's okay.
Thanks, Trev. Just to make this clear for our board here, this particular item is to approve the program statement, the overall program statement for Memorial Stadium Improvement Project, UNL.
All right, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, and did I see a second down there, Regent Shear?
I have a question, but go ahead and take your second.
I'll second it.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Regent Shear, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the first that I've heard about the making adjustments as you go forward. And are you going to be presenting then something back to us that shows those off ramps and the sequencing that you're looking at as far as the priorities that you're looking at? The only scope that I've seen at that presentation was the total package. And I don't know that it'll make a big difference today, but I'd be interested to know what those priorities and the level that they all reach, and so that and the athletic department's been successful every time that I'm aware of, so I'm not questioning the ability or your judgment. Believe me, I'm not. But the economy is somewhat skeptical right now, and I think a lot of people are unsure of the plan. So I'm just curious when we could be expected to see something that shows that plan of action with the priorities and the values of those off-ramps, so that we can feel comfortable that the financial portion would be there as we move forward to take care of whatever construction we have underway.
Sure. It's a good and fair question, and I appreciate that. I will only tell you that the board can have any amount of interest and collaboration in this project as you want. I've been in front of business and finance, I think, nearly every session for a year and a half. And but I'm happy to, at any point, any meeting, academic affairs, that's what we want to do. We want to engage with you. We need your support. We need your help. We have blind spots too. And so as we move through this project, process, and even maybe get to intermediate design and some of those types of things, all of it will be brought to the full board for your consideration, understanding, and recommendation.
Well, the only concern I have is that we don't expand past the value of the funds that we have on hand.
That's right.
And that's primarily what I was looking at. Total project at the 450 million showed some areas that levels that you are going to be raising or providing the funds from, immaterial where they're coming from, and just knowing that those funds are available as you start those specific areas of construction, so that we have the funds to finish whatever we have started, regardless if it's the whole project or just a portion thereof. Unfortunately, for our system, you've probably been at the business, but those that are not on the business committee have very little input on that or knowledge of what was discussed. So I'm not, so probably my questions are more to the point, but because I have not been that familiar, nor have I been on board that long. But I just want to make sure we don't get caught behind the 8 ball.
No, you're exactly right. And, we'll expand our communication, number one. Number two, part of this, which is, I'm sure President Carter will lay this out in this 3-pronged approach. So this first approval, which is the initial infrastructure, allows us to get started on things that, quite frankly, whether or not this project move forward, we have to do with a 100-year-old stadium. And those are sources of funds that are already present within our ecosystem. But it gives us the opportunity, major construction of this project is not likely or can't happen because of the football seasons until January of 25. So we have a nice long time to work on the fundraising component and also work on those other sources that have yet been undefined. And we'll have greater clarity prior to any of that happening, and we'll be collaborating and working with you all so you'll have great insight into what those look like.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
So just for clarity for the board, and this has been the board's policy, and none of this has changed. Here at the University of Nebraska, a shovel doesn't go into the ground until the money has been raised or, put in hand. So even though we must have a project statement approved before we get to the next item that we'll vote on, that's what's on the table. This board will have lots of opportunity through intermediate design review and other checkpoints to review the project based on funding that is in hand. A lot of fundraising needs to be done here in that period of time. So there is opportunity for you to have those spot checks and multiple off-ramps on this project based on the actual funding.
And I like to comment that I guess I was glad to hear you say that at least you're willing to adjust according to the money that you have raised.
Absolutely.
Because I come from a rural background. I come from people who are concerned about property taxes, et cetera. And with this economy, it's really important that that's the way you're willing to operate, because I would never want to commit to something that you came back and said, hey, I'm really short, and then I have to affect what students and faculty have available for education. So
I'm an alum here too, and I wouldn't do that to my university that I love. I will say, and again, I take no credit for this. It's past leadership. This has been, communicated publicly. As a result of that type of thinking you're talking about, this athletic department is the only athletic department in the Big Ten that has no debt. And so the small amount of debt we took out for the Go Big project, by the way, will be repaid by the end of this fiscal year. So we will not start another project and add debt to existing debt. And that's really important as well. So we will be very careful about that, and I will promise you we will not add to the debt load of the university.
and I'll hold you to it.
Yes, ma'am.
Regent,
I have a question. I really have 2 questions. The first one is, why now? We're in the midst of leadership changes. We're looking for $54 million for our operating funds that we didn't get from the unicameral. And I have a real concern about the opportunity to see more detail about the project before I say, oh, great, $450 million, you sure can have it. So I'm wondering why we could not add the intermediate review as part of the approval process to this project. You said you're going to do one. Why don't we make it part of how we manage this project?
Part of the challenge is, it's the old standing chicken or egg, right? We don't have a project until you all approve it, so we can't really go to work, with our potential donors as well as finding other sources until we have approval and we have a project.
Well, normally we have projects that have come in with different phases where we had opportunities then to look at it again and again as it went along. And to my mind, it's a very helpful thing with a project of this size during the time that we're doing a $3 billion capital campaign, at the same time that we be very aware of the progress. And I think the intermediate review process would at least give us a legitimate charter-based reason to talk to you again about this project. And collaborating is great, but I think that it needs to be a collaboration of more voices. I think 22,000 fans are important. I've been going to games since I was 6 years old. I know how important Husker athletics are, but I'm deeply concerned about the amount of money that we're expecting to raise from a lot of the same people. And especially, I'm concerned about committing this much money to a project I know very few details about. I know vaguely, I know the outlines. I know there's an academic part. I really appreciate that. But I really don't feel like I know this project like I knew other projects that have been presented. And a lot of that had to do with phases. So I'm just asking, and Chair, not sure if that's something we can do, and if it isn't, can't. But I would really request that we put an intermediate approval in this project.
There's 3 steps to this.
Yeah. Okay.
And the first step, of course, is the ADA stuff that Trev was.
Right.
That has to be done. But to do that, why do the ADA changes, other structural changes that the ADA is going to require us to make, and then have to redo it if we don't have a design on a project? So it is a little bit chicken and the egg.
Right.
And they are coming back on an intermediate design. They are going to be subject to having all the monies raised before the shovel goes in the ground. That is absolute. And that's not deviation from our policy whatsoever. So there are those checks and balances that will keep the athletic department, held in check until those T's are crossed, so to speak. But we have to do this in order to get the ADA stuff from a timing standpoint. That's why I'm supportive of this project. And I would just, I'm sorry, are you done?
One more thing. Well, just about the ADA piece, I know we need to do it, we should do it. Why isn't it offered as a separate project? And I want to I'm remembering the engineering building where we added a building to a building and then discovered that the other building didn't meet the standards for inspection. And so then they had to redo part of that. And I can see that issue going both ways here, but it meant more money. And we've already, I question whether $450 million will be the end cost of this building. And that's just my personal opinion. But I wonder why we can't do one action that says we're going to do the ADA work right now. And that doesn't mean that we're saying no to the rest of the project. It just means right now we'll do that project. And in the meantime, the rest of us will have opportunities to ask more questions, get more details, find out who exactly it is that we're working with in terms of all the construction and the costs. And I think we're going to have some real concerns around the 10 to 20,000 people displaced from their seats during the course of the project. And it's just kind of like, oh, it'll be okay. We'll make it okay for them. I want to know how you're going to make it okay for them. But that's an entirely different question.
I appreciate those questions, and I think the way that we broke it out, I think will give you the oversight steps 2 and 3.
Okay.
And it's from a timing standpoint that we're having to do this. So I want to say a couple things. One, I want to credit you, Trev, and your team for putting forward the vision for what I've called Memorial Stadium 2.0. As a lifelong Nebraskan myself and a lifelong Husker fan, I didn't go when I was 6. I went to my first game when I was 10. I'm excited to see this vision come together. And so from my chair, this plan includes the right elements. Okay, first, I think it puts our fans first. We've asked our fans for input. We've incorporated those ideas that the fans gave you into the plan, And with this project, we can provide a fan experience like no other. And truly, our fans deserve it. Second, it prioritizes our students. Today's students are tomorrow's business leaders. They are tomorrow's community leaders. They are tomorrow's elected leaders. They are the parents of the next generation of Husker fans. So I'm excited about the ideas that you're talking about to embrace our students and make Memorial Stadium the place to be on Saturdays. Third, I like that you're thinking about how to better connect the stadium to the rest of the campus. Athletics and academics are important parts of our campus culture. We can and we should, and now we will, embrace both academics and athletics. So I like what I'm hearing about expanding the capacity in the stadium for academic programs and making sure that we're using our stadium more than just 7 times in the fall. Excellence matters at the University of Nebraska, and I want to see us invest in excellence across the board. Dream big. The words I say to myself almost every day are everything AAU. And what I mean by that is that we are doing everything possible to grow, to enhance our competitiveness throughout the country and the world, to enhance our national brand and our reputation. Huskers athletics is a big part of our national brand. When people see that Nebraska is doing big things, it gets them talking about our university and about our state. It creates interest among students. It gets alumni excited. It gets donors excited. And that all matters when it comes to attracting talent and becoming an even more outstanding and competitive university that can gain readmission into the most prestigious group of institutions in our country. So I appreciate the work that's gone into this proposal. I recognize there are some unanswered questions. I recognize and appreciate my colleagues' comments that have said they want to see more. We have broke it out into phases that I think will enable that to happen. We so appreciate also the level of donor support and the fiscal strength within Huskers athletics that would allow us to even consider this type of a project. And of course, consistent with a longstanding practice of this board, we will not put a shovel into the ground until we have raised all private dollars necessary. So I'm going to be voting yes on this motion, and I look forward to the partnerships that are ahead. And truly, there is no place like Nebraska.
Mr. Chair, can I make a comment?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Trev, I've known you from the first day you walked on campus. You probably won't find a bigger supporter of Husker athletics. Spent 15 years of my life, best 15 years I ever had. However, I'd like to echo some of the comments my colleague Regent Shear said. I'm on the Business and Finance Committee, and we've had presentations, but I've heard a lot from my constituents who have questions about the off-ramps. We need more specification of the off-ramps. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because we need to know what's going to happen when you hit that off-ramp and if we run into difficulty, and that's what people are concerned about. We support it, we want it, we know it needs to be done, but we have to do it in consecutive steps, okay?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just real quickly, I just wanted to make sure that I'm supportive of this. The athletic director is absolutely correct. Our athletic department is next to none in relationship to utilizing revenues that should go towards education, as they do in other institutions. We do not, and they should be congratulated, not only you, but those of your predecessors, that as we gain national recognition and attention, that we use those funds and took care of that department first, so that it was not a drain on the rest of the college or academics. So I'm very supportive of the project, but as you can tell, I don't pay to have my hair colored. I'm about the age of dirt, and so as you become that age, you become a little more conservative. and a lot of the state is probably closer to my age than your age. And I think there is concern, by the general public, and I just wanted to make sure that more than anything that you acknowledged that, and as well as the chairman has acknowledged that the construction process will follow the funds, and the funds will only go there, and I have great respect for Mr. Ewald that in charge of the finances, that all that will take place. And I as well will be voting yes, because I have great confidence in that, the institution and your department, and feel very confident you will achieve that. I just wanted to make sure that we had those little side steps that are available. So thank you for your time.
Yep, thank you.
Regent O'Connor.
I want to say that I am also supportive of this project. I do share Regent White's and Regent Shear's concerns regarding needing more information as this project evolves. I think you've done a good job looping us in, but it's a big project, and I think it is going to need a lot of attention moving forward. And I do want to underscore that no commitments on the entire project are being made today, per your comments about cutting the cloth to fit the quilt. But we do want to open the discussion of what the stadium's future could look like for Huskers and for Nebraska's fans. And with a project of this scope, I think it's very important that we don't rush. I understand that there are a lot of concerns out there, whether it be the seat licenses, the cost of the project amidst academic cuts in a rough economic time, and the timeline of the project, but I do want to encourage people to raise those concerns with the Regents and the athletic department. I think Trev has been really open to trying to share what's going on with the project, and I'm proud of the fact that we want this to be a collaborative project, because it's not just a UNL project, it's a project for Nebraska, and we want Nebraskans to be involved in the decision making, and I expect that the project probably is going to change and evolve as we move forward. And I want to underscore that our intention for this phase of the project is to address the necessary changes for the ADA and to begin to gather philanthropic dollars. And we need solutions that are going to be equitable for all those involved. And I really do think this is just the beginning, and I don't intend the conversation to stop today.
Thank you.
Well said.
Regent Peckish.
Yeah, I think this is a really exciting project for the University of Nebraska and in our state as a whole. And as you've heard, there's some questions and concerns maybe about the project relating to our budget and the implications that Regent Whites and Shear shared, which are valid, and I share some of those concerns too. But I'm really excited about this project and the potential for collaboration and integration between our athletics and our academic enterprises and the community engagement piece too. So this is a project that's much more than 7 Saturdays a year. It's for our students and for our states, and I think we have a lot to look forward to. I'd also like to say I'm just appreciative of athletics' strong record of being really responsible stewards of funding, and I'm glad that this project does not have any intention to use state money or student fees or tuition to fund. So I'm excited that the stadium is going to receive some needed updates. We'll have community and academic uses, and I'm excited for another 100 years.
Thank you, Paul.
Any other comments?
Thank you, Regent Claire. Serving on the Business and Finance Committee, I got a unique perspective, and then contrasting it with perhaps a removal out at UNK. But I guess to echo some of the regents before me, I think it's important to emphasize the nature and the funding of this project and how it impacts our students, to consider it separately in terms of finances from student fees, tuition, and state aid. And to that end, you've presented some needed updates to the stadium, including some compliance with ADA, which is definitely and extremely necessary. Thank you.
Thank you.
Further comments? I think in view of the magnitude of the project, I would like the minutes of the meeting today to reflect that's the intent of the board, that the intermediate design review will return to the full board for action, as opposed to our usual process where it's just approved by Business and Finance. The elevated review is going to give our entire board, and appropriately, oversight over this project. Further, I want to again emphasize, and I'd like the minutes to reflect that the projects do not move forward, the project does not move forward to intermediate design, nor is there a shovel put into the ground, quote unquote, until all funding in the.
Great.
If there's no further comments, let's call the roll.
Regent Latoro,
Yes.
Regent Molina,
Yes.
Regent Peckish,
Yes.
Regent Schultes,
Yes.
Regent Shear,
Yes.
Regent Stark,
Yes.
Regent Whites,
You're all very persuasive, and I'm going to vote yes.
Regent Wilmot,
Yes.
Regent Clare,
Yes.
Regent Kenny,
Yes.
Regent O'Connor,
Yes.
Regent Schaefer.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Next, I'm going to recommend approval of item 11B3, which would waive Regents Policy 6.3.6 and authorize work to commence on the $45 million infrastructure and ADA compliance scopes. Now, a lot of that was just discussed previously, but this is a separate voting item. This item was also reviewed by the Business and Finance Committee, and I recommend it to you for approval.
So is there a motion?
I'll make it.
Second?
Second.
All right. Is there anything that hasn't been said yet?
Well,
Regent Shear.
I do, and I think it's sort of important because we have on occasion recently been waiving this portion of our policy, probably, as far as I'm concerned, too frequently. If we've got a policy, we should be adhering to it. And I understand that, the need at this point in time, but I think we as a committee, and I don't know which one would be doing that, should look at those policies to make sure that they are appropriate, rather than continue just to waive it. But then we shouldn't have it, or it should be modified. But I think what we've been doing probably is not in the best interest of the university as a whole. So I would ask that at some point in time, this be directed towards a committee so that we can adjust or change to more facilitate the use of the university as a whole.
Great. Thank you. All right. Call the roll.
Regent Molina,
Yes.
Regent Peckish,
Yes.
Regent Schultes,
Yes.
Regent Latoro,
Yes.
Regent Stark,
Yes.
Regent Whites,
Yes.
Regent Wilmot,
Yes.
Regent Clare,
Yes.
Regent Kenny,
Yes.
Regent O'Connor,
Yes.
Regent Schaefer,
Yes.
Regent Shear.
Yes.
The motion passes.
The last item associated with the Memorial Stadium project is item 11B4. This seeks to approve amendment to a professional services contract with the Nebraska Philanthropic Trust for services related to the Memorial Stadium Improvement Project. I recommend approval of item 11B4, which amendments a professional services contract with the Nebraska Philanthropic Trust to provide services relating to the project. This item was reviewed by the Business and Finance Committee, and I recommend it to you for approval.
All right. We have a motion? Paul, you've been consistent.
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Do have a question. Mr. President, could you possibly, and note that this was revised, if you could please perhaps make a short synopsis of what the change of the request was?
Actually, the initial draft was done about a year ago and kind of missed, frankly, until review late. It didn't have starting and ending dates in the contract. And so we thought it was important to have starting and ending dates. And there was a further clarification that fundraising was both gifts and signed pledges. So that there was two slight language pieces. So General Counsel and Vice Chancellor Kaborik are comfortable with the language in there, but it was a change and addendum to add to that contract.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions?
I have a comment. So I would have preferred that we have some sort of fundraising benchmarks in there tied with the fees that we're paying the consultant, but I did speak with Trev about it, and I wanted to make sure that people knew that there is a 30-day clause that allows us to cancel if we feel that the consultant is not performing fully to our standards. So I know that we always strive to make sure that we're getting the best work for the fees that we're paying, and I think that we're going to be able to do that in this case as well.
Anything else? Roll call.
Regent Peckish?
Yes.
Regent Schultes?
Yes.
Regent Latoro?
Yes.
Regent Molina?
Yes.
Regent Whites?
Yes.
Regent Wilmot?
Yes.
Regent Clare?
Yes.
Regent Kenny?
Yes.
Regent O'Connor?
Yes.
Regent Schaefer?
Yes.
Regent Shear?
Yes.
Regent Stark?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you.
Item 11B5 seeks your approval to appoint Rodney Bennett and reappoint Larry Miller and Bob Wilhelm to the Nebraska Innovation Campus Development Corporation Board of Directors. It also seeks your approval of the amended and restated articles of bylaws, which are in conformance with the standard UTDC governing document templates. This item was reviewed by the Business and Finance Committee, and I recommend it to you for your approval.
All right, is there a motion for this?
So move.
Regent Shear moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Regent White. Discussion. Roll call.
Regent Schultes?
Yes.
Regent Latoro?
Yes.
Regent Molina?
Yes.
Regent Peckish?
Yes.
Regent Wilmot?
Yes.
Regent Clare?
Yes.
Regent Kenny?
Yes.
Regent O'Connor?
Yes.
Regent Schaefer?
Yes.
Regent Shear?
Yes.
Regent Stark?
Yes.
Regent Whites?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Item 11B6 seeks your approval to convert the Halleck Farm quasi-endowment into an unrestricted fund to allow increased funding support for the Feedlot Innovation Center project at the Eastern Nebraska Research, Extension, and Education Center. Utilizing this gift for the Feedlot Innovation Center aligns with the gift's intended purpose, which was to support new and existing initiatives in beef and grazing systems research. This item was reviewed by the Business and Finance Committee, and I recommend it to you for your approval.
Okay, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
White. Is there a second?
Second by Shear.
Regent.
Oh, Regent Shear seconded. Okay, discussion. Roll.
Regent Latoro?
Yes.
Regent Molina?
Yes.
Regent Peckish?
Yes.
Regent Schultes?
Yes.
Regent Clare?
Yes.
Regent Kenny?
Yes.
Regent O'Connor?
Yes.
Regent Schaefer?
Yes.
Regent Shear?
Yes.
Regent Stark?
Yes.
Regent Whites?
Yes.
Regent Wilmot?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Item 11B7 seeks your approval of a waiver to Regents Policy 6.3.6 to permit UNMC to engage the design and general contractor teams ahead of approval of the program statement to help establish a project budget, evaluate fundraising capacity, prioritize investments, and determine required project phasing. As the university's largest potential capital project, we are seeking an alternative process to ensure a fully vetted program statement may be considered by the board. We also plan to bring a proposed amendment to Regents Policy 6.3.6 to the board at your December or February meeting, so future policy waivers are not sought. I'll ask Chancellor Gold to make comments on what project formerly called Project Next still has some elements of that, but this phase called Project Health.
Thank you, President Carter, members of the Board of Regents. It is, of course, my pleasure to provide just a brief overview of what it is we're asking, why we're asking it, and why now. As President Carter said, this is potentially the largest project that the University of Nebraska writ large has ever contemplated. It is based upon the fact that the facilities in which we provide clinical education, cutting-edge clinical research, and life-saving, otherwise unavailable clinical care are looking at nearly $1 billion of deferred maintenance. This not only relates to the current education, clinical research trials, and care, but also our ability to recruit and retain students who are the future workforce of our state, to build that workforce for rural and urban Nebraska, and to retain the gifted faculty that we have. As President Carter said, this is historically known as Phase 1 of Project Next, Nebraska Transformation, now named Health, building the healthiest Nebraska, predicated on the 2012 work done by former President J.B. Milliken, at that time Governor Heinemann, the legislature, and the private philanthropic community that built the Fred and Pamela Buffett Cancer Center, that built the nursing schools across the rural and communities of our state, and so many others, with the help of the large investment of our private philanthropic community. The remaining latter phases may or may not occur. I am still guardedly optimistic regarding Phase 2 and Phase 3, but we need to move forward now with Phase 1. Indeed, as presented to both the Academic Affairs Committee and the Business and Finance Committee, even Phase 1 is divided into 4 separate financially distinct components, each of which has a separate off-ramp. As President Carter also said, because this is one of the largest projects ever done in the state, and indeed has either letters of intent or signed commitments and fund transfer to be the largest philanthropic project ever contemplated in the state of Nebraska. We need to be very cautious about the sources and uses of those dollars, defining the off-ramps. And of course, reiterating what Regent Clare said just a minute ago, is that nobody is going to turn the first shovel of dirt until there is an absolutely clear program statement and we live clearly within our means. I love the metaphor about cutting the quilt and fitting the template. But this is something that we really need to do. We need to do it in a phased fashion. And let me also be very clear that in spite of the fact we continue to invest with public-private partnerships with the state, the philanthropic community, and the university in building healthcare education programs in rural Nebraska, that every one of those programs depends upon what happens on the Omaha campus. Because the rotations, there will be critical rotations for medical students, nursing students, pharmacy students, dental students, and others that need to occur in this city and need to occur in this campus just because of the density of patient populations. You know, think high-risk pediatrics, think high-risk OB, think solid organ transplantation, et cetera, et cetera. So we are asking today is the opportunity to simply engage in the planning, to bring together a team of gifted professionals. We've done a good deal of planning since 2014 when we were first approached by our federal governmental partners regarding medical surge capacity for high consequence infections. As you are well aware, the ability to work effectively with many of our federal departments and agencies, the United States Congress, and indeed the White House has now changed through multiple administrations and refocused their activities and their interests in multiple different areas. However, we need to serve Nebraskans, both rural and urban Nebraskans, and this is what we need to be done. I would also remind our board that on 25 June 2021, this Board of Regents approved the pilot site project, which allowed us to apply to the state of Nebraska for a $300 million state investment to be matched by, at that time, $300 million of philanthropic support. We are now just under $500 million of private philanthropic support, aiming towards a much larger number than that. And so that's where we stand today, and I'm very pleased to answer any questions that you may have.
Mr. Chairman?
Okay, let's, we need a motion to approve first.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Now, Regent Shear?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Chancellor Gold knows, I've been a very big supporter of this from its inception, and I feel very comfortable with the off-ramps and the proposal as it's been presented, staying within, again, the limitations of our funding sources so that we don't get ourselves pushed to the point where we become financially unstable, either through the university or through the medical center, and which I'm not assuming, I'm assured with Mr. Chancellor Gold's ability that those things will be taken care of in time permitted, and the funds will become available for the entire project at some point in time. This is a very, very large project, and we have to start somewhere, and this seems like a unique and the best plan to start something. If you never start, you never finish. And so today is the start. So congratulate you for bringing it to the.
Thank you, sir.
Stark.
50 years ago today, I started the med school here. It was one of the most enjoyable parts of my life. We're trying to double medical students. We have a shortage, residents, nurses, and the work you've been doing, particularly the last 8 months with the Health Affairs Committee that we're trying to set up. I compliment you on your vision. We desperately need this. We're running out of space. We need more facilities and for training, particularly for our residents and nursing students for their clinical services. So I'm a strong advocate for this very process. Thank you, Dr. Gold, for your commitment.
Thank you.
Regent Kinney.
First, I'm very much in favor, and Jeff, I've told you that, but going forward, I want to have more clarity on where deferred maintenance comes from, the relationship between Nebraska Medicine and the Med Center, and also would ask that it all comes back to the entire board again instead of 4 members.
I can answer perhaps your first question, sir, is that the terminations of current deferred maintenance were made by 2 different nationally recognized architecture and design firms. One estimated $850 million of deferred maintenance. The other estimated just over $1 billion. There were 2 plans brought forward. One was a 10-year plan, which would take 75-year-old buildings to the 85-year-old mark. The other was a 20-year plan, and depending upon whether it was done in 10 years or 20 years, it would need us to reduce our bed capacity by either 100 or 200 operating beds, which in addition to markedly reducing the economic viability of the institution, would markedly reduce the clinical learning experiences for our students and access to both rural and urban Nebraskans. I'm more than pleased to provide to the board the documentation, but these were 2 very well-established local national architecture and design firms. There's little question in my mind about that, sir.
Thank you, Chancellor.
I would say that I recognize the need for the medical facilities, and I want to see those. We have a lot of our family that's involved in the medical profession. But I do have some relationship concerns between the 2 entities that I've discussed in the past, and I want to work on those some more in the future as well.
Understood. Thank you.
O'Connor.
I want to emphasize that this project has my full support. I'm very excited about it, and I think it will play a critical part in addressing the statewide shortage in doctors and mental health providers that we are facing, and in particular will address that concern for underserved rural communities. This project is not only going to impact the lives of the 4,555 students each year, but more importantly, the patient lives that those future health providers will treat. As a byproduct, this project will bring additional economic benefits to our state, adding to the already $1.5 billion we receive from UNMC that we discussed earlier today. I don't think that this is just an investment in infrastructure. More importantly, it's an investment in the people of Nebraska and our future as a state. And I am extremely excited about getting to work on this and to seeing what we can achieve for Nebraskans. So thank you, and thank you for your hard work, Dr. Gold.
Thank you.
Regent Schultes.
Thank you. As a student, a UNMC student, I give my enthusiastic support of this project and of what we're doing today. As students, we do a majority of our learning, depending on your program, but a great majority of your learning in the clinical learning spaces that we have here. And as students, we really, really love our spaces that are these modern and just great clinical spaces that are conducive for our learning. And I also note that a vote yes today is really just a guarantee that we are going to get more information on this and hopefully feel more excited about this project in the future. And so this has my full support, and I'm very excited to see where we move forward.
Regent Whites.
I also am very supportive of this project, and what excites me about it is we're investing on behalf of students, faculty, our city, our county, our state. We're creating the capacity for better health care across our entire state. And I think that's a win in every direction, and I really appreciate the work that's going into this project. Thank you.
Yeah, I would first like to echo Regent Schultes' comments that this is such an inspiring project from the perspective of students. We're creating a pathway that we can not only inspire more students to come to Nebraska, but the students who are already in the system. We're seeing more chances to advance within Nebraska and to keep our talents local and still advancing those same rural, homegrown vibes that I think projects like a lot of the work that UNMC has been doing recently has really been able to exemplify. But I'm also really interested into the retention that we can see from having more students have access to healthcare providers in general, that we're creating a almost three-pronged approach to keeping students within the state and as healthy as possible. I'm very excited to see this.
Thank you. Any further comments? In view of the magnitude of the project, I too emphasize that today's action permits the engagement of the design and general contract teams ahead of the program statement approval. Approval of contracts with both teams will require approval by the board at a subsequent meeting. Once the teams are engaged, more informed program statement can be developed and presented to the board for consideration. Project Health is the university's largest capital project ever. At the program statement phase, I would ask that the funding plan also be defined and defined clearly. And as was stated during the Memorial Stadium project, I'd emphasize that the project will only move to intermediate design when all funding and commitments are secure.
Well, certainly, sir. I can tell you in my near decade of bringing capital projects to this board, we have never brought one that did not have a full funding plan. And rest assured, we will never come back to this board without a full, complete, and detailed funding plan.
Keep changing the world. Call the roll.
Regent Molino?
Yes.
Regent Peckish?
Yes.
Regent Schultes?
Yes.
Regent Latoro?
Yes.
Regent Kenny?
Yes.
Regent O'Connor?
Yes.
Regent Schaefer?
Yes.
Regent Shear?
Yes.
Regent Stark?
Yes.
Regent Whites?
Yes.
Regent Wilmot?
Yes.
Regent Clare?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you very much. I do think it is historic with this vote, and that you're in the shadow of the 1917 building. And yes, we will continue to try to change the world.
Item 11B8 seeks your approval of the program statement for the research component of the core, C-O-R-E, building at UNMC. This is a good news story, as UNMC's success in generating extramural research funding has caused our research environments to be at or near capacity. This new facility will support dry computer-based research and wet lab-based research. The project will be utilizing the internal lending program with bond payments made from research facility and administrative F&A income. This nearly $87 million project was reviewed by the Business and Finance Committee, and I recommend it to you for your approval.
Don't make it.
Okay, Regent Kenny is on a roll today with motion central right there. Is there a second? Looking that way for Regent Shear, because he's been on a
Second.
roll today, seconding everything. All right, we got a motion and a second. Discussion. Roll
Question.
call. Yes, sir.
Will that generate fees from things developed there?
Sure. So as we expand our research programs and continue to grow, last night you met Joanne Sweezy, who's the new director of the Fred and Pamela Buffett Cancer Center, starting in just next month. It just continues to grow our need for both wet and dry research space, which produces more federal funding, increases the opportunities for us to be recognized by the AAU, but most importantly spins off businesses, technology transfer, commercialization, new drugs, new medical devices, et cetera. This is really important to the economic development of our community and very important for our ability to recruit and retain faculty and a future generation of students. There's been a lot of planning that has gone into the use of this space, and I'm very deeply grateful to Mr. Kuborik and all of our finance team for putting this model together to make it possible.
Great. Further questions? Roll call.
Regent Peckish?
Yes.
Regent Schultes?
Yes.
Regent Latoro?
Yes.
Regent Molina?
Yes.
Regent O'Connor?
Yes.
Regent Schaefer?
Yes.
Regent Shear?
Yes.
Regent Stark?
Yes.
Regent Whites?
Yes.
Regent Wilmot?
Yes.
Regent Clare?
Yes.
Regent Kenny?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Item 11B9 seeks your approval to acquire real property at 414 South 40th Street and 3910 Dewey Avenue in support of UNMC's campus master plan and growth. The combined cost of both properties is approximately $2.2 million. This item was reviewed by the Business and Finance Committee, and I recommend it to you for your approval.
Is there a motion?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Discussion. Call the roll.
Regent Schultes?
Yes.
Regent Latoro?
Yes.
Regent Molina?
Yes.
Regent Peckish?
Yes.
Regent Schaefer?
Yes.
Regent Shear?
Yes.
Regent Stark?
Yes.
Regent Whites?
Yes.
Regent Wilmot?
Yes.
Regent Clare?
Yes.
Regent Kenny?
Yes.
Regent O'Connor?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Item 11B10 seeks your approval to amend UNO's property management agreements with Scott Residential Management for the Scott Village and Scott Court complexes. The proposed amendments would extend the term of both agreements through June 30th, 2028. Additionally, it would increase the management fee from 4% of gross revenue received to 6% of gross revenue received. The increased management fee will allow SRM to maintain superior housing and dining experiences on the Scott campus, which has had a positive correlation to student retention and performance. It will also allow SRM to effectively recruit and improve retention of employees. This item was reviewed by the Business and Finance Committee, and I recommend it to you for your approval.
Okay, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
You were slow, Paul.
One of them, didn't you?
All right, discussion? Roll call.
Regent Latoro?
Yes.
Regent Molina?
Yes.
Regent Peckish?
Yes.
Regent Schultes?
Yes.
Regent Shear?
Yes.
Regent Stark?
Yes.
Regent Whites?
Yes.
Regent Wilmot?
Yes.
Regent Clare?
Yes.
Regent Kenny?
Yes.
Regent O'Connor?
Yes.
Regent Schaefer?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Okay, 11C1 is on today's agenda to give the board an opportunity to engage in a dialogue regarding our core leadership pillars. You will recall, as part of the 2019 presidential search, the Board of Regents, Presidential Search Advisory Committee, and the board's executive search firm partners conducted extensive listening sessions throughout our state and our campuses. Based on the constituent feedback, then Regent Pillen, now Governor Pillen, led the development of the core leadership pillars. Included with your materials is a resolution affirming the 9 existing core leadership pillars. In addition to general discussion on the pillars, if any of my colleagues would like to make additions or changes, we'll entertain those motions. If a motion receives a second, then we'll have a discussion on the proposed addition or change and then vote. Ultimately, a set of core leadership pillars will be communicated to the Search Advisory Committee and our executive search consulting partner for inclusion in the leadership profile. So with that explanation, I'm going to open it up for discussion on the core leadership pillars. What additions or deletions or amendments to those 9 core leadership pillars we'd like to entertain in order to move our search forward. Regent Stark.
Pillar number 2, I like to add 6 words. Prioritizes higher education, academic, and research excellence. Understands, appreciates, and prioritizes excellence in higher education, academics, and research. I want to insert especially in our academic health centers with what's developed in what we're doing in Kearney and what we're doing at this medical school. I think it would be helpful to have some knowledge and experience with academic health centers. So I'd make that proposal. Add those 6 words, especially in our academic health centers, after the word research.
Second.
Okay, that's a motion. I'm sorry, I was trying to find it. Huh?
That's pillar
Number
number 3.
Pillar 3.
Yeah. understands, appreciates, and prioritizes excellence in higher education, academics, research, and its importance to faculty, students, and their families in the state. And you want to add,
especially in our academic health centers behind the word research.
okay, the motion is to add, especially in our
Academic health centers.
academic health centers. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Who was that? Sure.
I think it was
Okay.
Sheer.
Okay, discussion on making that addition.
I'm supportive of that addition. I think it makes sense, particularly with all the work that our health centers are doing, how economically important it is to the state, and our emphasis on trying to make healthcare more accessible. So I would be supportive of that.
Okay. Anybody else?
My
Comment?
concern is that it waters down the rest of the areas that we've already focused in on, and it trying to put one part of what we do on our mission ahead of the other. So I'm not.
Can you repeat? I don't think.
I couldn't hear.
Regent Schultes?
I'd support this amendment. I think if we're thinking everything AUA, we saw yesterday how many of our peer institutions have academic health centers and how the research that our health centers produce are very important in that goal. And I think UNMC in general would very much appreciate having that guidance and leadership.
Point of order, could Regent Schaefer repeat? I don't think Regent Stark could hear.
Yeah, I guess I'm not in supportive of, especially with extra emphasis on just the health center portion of it, because then I think it waters down the rest of what we're trying to do here as the university and what our mission is. And so
You have
I
another
think
word?
they're all important. I think everything that we do is important, and it's almost like trying to pick out and tell somebody who your favorite child is. Well, they're all my favorite.
Chairman?
Yes.
Oh.
Take her easy.
How about including?
Including is fine, but not as,
Okay.
no special emphasis with especially.
We do put.
Just to me, my comment was going to be, it seemed to me like it's a little more function of a chancellor. Like Chancellor Gold, it should be more of a function of the office of Chancellor of the Med Center.
Okay, what was your comment?
I mean, I think that we do occasionally in these pillars elevate. I mean, we elevate in the last pillar, values intercollegiate athletics, understands and appreciates intercollegiate athletics, especially Husker athletics, and views it as an important door to the University of Nebraska. I would support leaving it as especially. I do think that our what was the wording? The health service?
In our health centers.
I mean, I do think that our academic health centers are also an important doorway into the campus. So I think if we're zeroing in on Husker athletics, I think it makes sense to also zero in on our health centers.
Jack, let me throw this out. As opposed to changing Pillar 3, what if we went down to the pillar in regards to intercollegiate athletics and said values intercollegiate athletics and academic health?
I'm fine with it as long as we include academic health centers. Because I mean, if we're talking about half the university system. If you look at the healthcare, it's in the whole system. So as long as it's included there, I don't care where we put it.
So that would be I don't know
Yeah.
Robert's rule of orders guy.
You can put it in the collegiate athletics.
Yeah, I'm not a
You can amend the
Robert's rule of
amendment.
orders guy. Can we make an amendment to an amendment?
You can.
Yeah.
You can only make
I
one.
move to strike my first
We already have a
recommendation
motion and a
and
second.
include the
Please
second
withdraw
one, I
that
guess.
and then re-enter it as your new idea.
Withdraw that. And
What do you need?
Jack,
You
would
can, you can amend the amendment, but
Yeah.
he's withdrawn it, and I withdraw my second, so you have a fresh one.
Okay, so can we add that?
Yeah.
Okay,
I was going to do it in the beginning anyway, but
okay.
We have a new motion for what Regent Stark and Regent Clare are proposing, values intercollegiate athletics and academic health science centers as the 9th pillar. Could we have a motion for that?
so move.
Second.
We have move and second.
Point of information. So the question on the floor now is that amendment, and the previous amendment is dead.
Correct.
That's correct.
Is there further discussion on that?
Can we clarify how this would read? So would the initial portion be values intercollegiate athletics and academic health centers, and then tagged on to the portion behind that understands and appreciates intercollegiate athletics, especially Husker athletics and academic health centers, and the rest would read the same?
Yes. Yes, that's,
That'd be, yep, I'm supportive.
all right. Roll call on that amendment.
Regent Peckish,
Yes.
Regent Schultes,
Yes.
Regent Latoro,
Yes.
Regent Molina,
Yes.
Regent Whites,
Yes.
Regent Wilmot,
Yes.
Regent Clare,
Yes.
Regent Kenny,
Yes.
Regent O'Connor,
Yes.
Regent Schaefer,
Yes.
Regent Shear,
Yes.
Regent Stark.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Okay, other discussion on revisions or amendments to the existing, now one changed 9 pillars. Yes. Regent-
I motion to amend pillar number 4 to now include the extra sentence, committed to one Nebraska, understands and appreciates the values of including all the voices, of all the university committee, including student voices, ability to develop and implement more collaboration and cooperation among the 4 campuses that leads to the whole being greater than the sum of its parts, and so on. So just to include that extra sentence at the start, understands and appreciates the value of including the voices of all the university committee, including student voices in the deliberation.
I'm not sure if I see where you're trying to fix.
Under committed to one
Under
Nebraska, you'd
committed
add
to
a
one
sentence to
Nebraska.
start.
Committed to one.
Start that? Okay, read what that starting sentence would be again.
Yeah, okay. It says, understands and appreciates the value of including the voices of all the university committee, community, including student voices.
Understands and appreciates the value of including all voices in the university community, especially those of students.
Including those.
Including those of students.
Sorry, could we repeat that one more time?
Okay. Understands and appreciates the value of including the voices of all the university committee, community, including student voices.
And I'm so sorry. And that's the first sentence after committed to one Nebraska, that sentence, then the rest of the pillar.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay, is there a motion? That's his motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion on that revision. Yes.
So I can talk to why we thought about bringing it up.
Put your, talk closer to, I can't understand.
Yes.
There
Okay,
we go.
it sounds like a little bit easier to hear me now. So in understanding that there's a recognition of a number of different university shareholders and committed interests of the university that we specifically highlight, we also wanted to show that there still needs to be a focus on including students and other members that might not be highlighted directly within the planning, deliberation, and overall collaborative attitudes of the next president.
Okay. Regent White.
No, I think this is important because we've said we are about student success. And this is a student success year. And I think we don't kind of get that sense of emphasis. They're there, but they're there with a lot of other stuff. And I think we're all here for the purpose of raising students and creating great new citizens. And so I think they deserve at least some, I think this is a good amendment for us to say, we do care about students and they are important and we want you to be as equally caring for student success as we are.
Okay. Good.
I would just add that obviously this board and in our system in the campuses, they value the voices of students, as there's 4 of us here, which we're very, very appreciative of. I would just make note that really we want to encapsulate the whole university community, and it just makes clear that students are one of the core missions of our academic missions here.
Melina?
Yeah, again, to echo those thoughts, I think it's important to emphasize the two parts to Regent Latoro's amendment. The first, that the constituents of our university include those from many perspectives, and then the second part, that it's important to explicitly mention students in some form of the language. So, as Regent White's mentioned, the purpose of what we do here, it's implicit that students are there, but it's important to have that explicit language saying that we value everyone.
It appears to me it's taken care of in the third one.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
I read the third pillar, and to me, it almost seems like it's taken care of in that pillar.
What if you just said understands, appreciates, and prioritizes excellence in higher education academic research for its students? I mean, I think this isn't as student-centered as I feel we all are committed to be. And while it's mentioned in several of these pillars in a big clump, I think even a pillar just dedicated to students would not be inappropriate.
Regent Claire? I think that that's a viable idea, maybe making a different pillar, but I do think that there's a difference in the proposal because one just says it prioritizes higher education, and then the other pillar says that it values students' voices and collaboration and cooperation among the campuses. So I do think that those are two different, I think those are two different ideas being put forth. One is about educating students, and one is about making them part of the decision-making and collaboration process. So I see a distinction, but it is Regent Latoro's amendment or proposal, so I would defer to him.
Well, I also wrote out a standalone pillar to see what that would look like and whether that might be viable. I don't know if the committee would like to consider that.
Well, the motion on the floor that you made for revising committed to Regent Pillar 4.
Well, I think I kind of like his amendment. Actually, I think it does a lot. And I think what I really like about it is connects with. It isn't just listening to the students, connecting with them. And then not only that, when you add that language of one Nebraska, it's bringing all of that together. So I think his wording does a lot. I mean, it does many different things. It isn't just their voice. It's that we're connecting with it, and we're basically uniting it all together with all of the other voices. We're paying attention, and we come out with the one cause, the one mission, the one focus.
No, that was exactly what the goal was, that as I was reading through all of the other pillars, I was just honing in really closely on the word collaboration, cooperation, and seeing how this is a place where we can really exemplify that goal to try to not just have students in the room, to not just have students listening to the different decisions that happen, but to actively work together with students and to do so from a place of interconnectedness, of working together, and of trying to see the best outcome from everybody who wants to see the university succeed.
Okay. Is there a further discussion on Regent Latoro's? All right, let's have a vote on that.
Regent Schultes?
Yes.
Regent Latoro?
Yes.
Regent Molina?
Yes.
Regent Peckish?
Yes.
Regent Wilmot?
Yes.
Regent Claire?
Yes.
Regent Kenny?
No.
Regent O'Connor?
Yes.
Regent Schaefer?
No.
Regent Shear?
Yes.
Regent Stark?
Yes.
Regent Whites?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Okay, further amendments, revisions. Great dialogue. To wrap this up, we've made two changes. One was to pillar number 9, and one was to pillar number 4. And we've made both of those revisions. Those have been voted on and approved. So I would entertain a motion to adopt the core leadership pillars as amended today.
So moved.
Second.
Paul, yep, second. Okay. Call the roll.
Regent Latoro.
Yes.
Regent Molina.
Yes.
Regent Peckish.
Yes.
Regent Schultes.
Yes.
Regent Clare.
Yes.
Regent Kenny.
Yes.
Regent O'Connor.
Yes.
Regent Schaefer.
Yes.
Regent Shear.
Yes.
Regent Stark.
Yes.
Regent Whites.
Yes.
Regent Wilmot.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Great. All right. Hang in there, we're about done. 11C2 seeks approval to select Academic Search as our executive search partner for the presidential search. Academic Search was the first organization committed to meeting the unique recruiting needs of higher education. The firm is a wholly owned subsidiary of American Academic Leadership Institute, which provides leadership programming, programs, networking opportunities, and mentorship experiences to prepare administrators to advance to higher positions of responsibility. Of note, 92% of the presidents or chancellors placed by Academic Search served for 5 or more years. The proposed search team has strong Nebraska ties. For instance, Jay Lemons is a Scottsbluff native and UNL alum. This item is recommended by the executive committee, and I would recommend a motion for its approval. Is there a motion?
I'll make that.
Second.
Okay, now discussion. Discussion on Academic Search and approving them to be the search firm for the presidential search.
More of
Regent
a comment, Mr. Chairman, question in regards, looking at their time frame, it is a much longer time frame from their minimum to maximum. Even the minimum is much longer and would go past the time frame that we originally were looking at. Are we readjusting that time frame then based on this, or?
I assume you're referring to the fact that in the proposal he talked about going into February.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that's just to give him some, with the aggressiveness, maybe we were a little bit aggressive in saying we're going to have this finished up by mid-end of December. This just gives us a little bit. It doesn't mean that we're going to not get it filled by the end of December, but it just gives us a little extra room.
I guess I'm just something for us to think about,
Yeah.
because if this is their norm, I would assume that maybe we can fast track it, but we probably have other things to think about then as well.
Correct.
I would echo that. It looks, their record looks like a 6-month kind of process. So if we can speed it up, and I'm sure we can.
Yes,
Okay.
we will. Further discussions? Call the roll.
Regent Molina.
Yes.
Regent Peckish.
Yes.
Regent Schultes.
Yes.
Regent Latoro.
Yes.
Regent Kenny.
Yes.
Regent O'Connor.
Yes.
Regent Schaefer.
Yes.
Regent Shear.
Yes.
Regent Stark.
Yes.
Regent Whites.
Yes.
Regent Wilmot.
Yes.
Regent Clare.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Fantastic. Well, I accept the reports listed on the agenda on behalf of the board. There being no further business, and if there's no objection, we are adjourned.